Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
Scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Welcome, everybody, to the live stream. Happy Monday, guys. What day is it today? Oh, man, I'm losing track of the days. Guys, we have a great one for you tonight. Tonight, we are going to be doing a watch party of Eric W. Davis. Eric W. Davis is a black project physicist. That doesn't mean he's African-American. That means he literally has worked on classified projects for the government. And just for a little background on Eric W. Davis has spent 20 years working at Earth Tech International, the Institute for Advanced Studies in Austin, as the right-hand man to a guy named Hal Puthoff. Hal Puthoff, if you watched our Science GOAT tier list, you will find out that Hal Puthoff is in the S class. In fact, one of the things we're going to potentially find out today is that Hal Puthoff might be one of the people that is essentially the highest-ranking secrecy CIA spooks that exist. What we're going to find out tonight is that there is something called the PEDs. These are emergency powers that have been pre-written, that go above the president. There is a separate parallel track of CIA / high-level intelligence operatives that can use these PEDs, and this is where they are potentially hiding these unacknowledged special access programs. And it is very possible that Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis have been involved in that. They've been involved in that process. Now, Eric W. Davis, as well, for 4 years, I believe he says at the beginning of this interview, worked for Aerospace Corporation. Where? Space Juice USA, chat. Huntsville, Alabama. For Aerospace Corporation. The Aerospace Corporation is one of these private companies that is fully funded by the government. And this is the one where they contract out the scientists and engineers to the various government labs across the country. So Eric W. Davis is very well connected. He is also one of these UFO whistleblowers who recently, just a few months ago, was talking to Congressman Burleson, Congresswoman Luna, about the suppression and hiding this technology, hiding UFO crash retrievals and aliens and whatever. Great. So we're going to take a look at that in just a minute. We also have a potential special guest who will be joining us. Michael Perrone has said that he will jump in at some point because he wants to discuss some of the science topics that Eric W. Davis says. So I sent him an invite. If he jumps in, we'll take a look at that and we'll talk to him for a little bit. Now, right before that, let's go ahead and address kind of some of the stuff that happened yesterday. If you didn't check it out, guys, I'm elevating the skeptic side of it. I'm bringing a better class of skeptics to this world. One thing I want to wonder, we have had literally for over 2 years straight, there have been debunkers. I don't call them skeptics, they're debunkers because they're low IQ Redditors, basically, that have been attacking me in the MH370 videos every single day. Every single day. Now, this is the most suspicious thing I find about this is that my following has been relatively small. Like, I don't even make enough money off of this to live off of this. And yet, these people claim that the reason why they've been attacking me, the reason why they've been trying to debunk the videos, is some white knight mental illness thing where they proclaim that we have to stop Ashton because he's grifting off these videos. That's their supposed moral argument, is why they've been doing this for literally over 2 years straight every single day. Think about that. Think about that. Why are they not attacking Ian Carroll and Candace Owens? Why are they not using their white knight powers to debunk the fake conspiracy theories being pushed by those guys? Those people are making tens of thousands of dollars per month off literally easily provable fake conspiracies. And yet, the debunkers are nowhere to be found. Can you find a subreddit dedicated to debunking Ian Carroll? Can you find one dedicated to debunking Candace Owens or debunking the fake conspiracy theories being pushed by them? No. So the question then is, how come I'm a better skeptic than they are? How come I'm a better skeptic than they are? That's the question that you should be asking yourself. Now, the last thing I want to say on this is right after this video, the video yesterday where I pretty much destroy all of Ian Carroll's terrible, terrible arguments about, I don't know, he doesn't even have an argument for who shot Charlie Kirk. He doesn't even know, right? He's already right back at it. Already right back at it the very next day. Now pushing that there's another shooter from a different direction. Guys, I've realized here, people may wonder, hey, are you going to go after him again? Honestly, at this point, I realize he knows it's a grift. He knows a grift. He knows exactly what he's doing. Like, it's so unserious at this point. You know, he ran from me just like a snake oil salesman runs from the cops, right? When they see the cops coming, oh shit, time to run. And then they go right back to selling the snake oil the next day, right? Like as if it didn't even happen. I just realized, like, okay, guys, we're not going to be able to stop this. He's got a bunch of brainwashed schizos that are in him. So the best that we can do is simply purge them from our ranks. And I've seen what happened is that this movement got a little too big, much like the Groyper movement got too big, and now all the low IQ anti-Semites have kind of taken over, right? Nick is dealing with the same shit that we're dealing with, which we got too many schizos in here, and it's bringing everybody down. So I'm glad that we were able to purge them all, because we're never going to get any form of credibility with anybody who's a normal person when you've got people out here who are, you know, have no logical, critical thinking ability whatsoever. And no, I'm not outside my wheelhouse. Not only am I not outside my wheelhouse, I'm more of an expert on your topics than you are. Ashton Forbes is more of an expert on Charlie Kirk than you are. I'm more of an expert on ballistics than you are. I'm more of an expert on science and technology than you are. I'm more of an expert on literally everything than you are. Take that to the bank. I'm more of an expert on politics than Ian Carroll will ever be in his entire life. Got that? Just let that sink in for a minute. And this is the reason why he ran away like a little bitch. Let's just be clear. He ran away like a little bitch because he was scared. Now, I'm going to educate you. For my followers, this is just a rehash. But for the people that are, you know, the brain dead schizos, like, honestly, we're not even at low IQ anymore. We're at straight up zero IQ. Let me basically, like, I didn't realize, like, how dumb you guys were. For the people that are out there, like, I didn't realize how stupid you guys were. So I apologize for that. I apologize also for calling you woke right. Because you're not right-wingers at all. You're actually just woke left nut jobs. You're woke left debunker nut jobs. That's what you guys are. You guys are. And so I'm so sorry, guys, that I called you woke right. I should have been calling you woke left Redditors the whole time. My bad. My bad. There you go. So let me go ahead and teach you just basic science, okay? The word science basically means the scientific method. I don't know, you've probably never heard of that. I'm sure you failed school, failed basic, failed basic physics class, and really any science class. So let me just go ahead and show you guys real quick the scientific method, okay? So here, this isn't even a good one. Let's do some better images here. How do I make this bigger, chat? How do we make this bigger, chat? All I want is the image. Okay, here it is, chat. The scientific method. Yeah, we might have to use crayons, actually. Oh, hold on. Why is this not pulled up the wrong one? To help these guys out. Look, I have a little image here so that you can understand it, because I know you guys are so, you know, not very intelligent. So the first thing you do is you observe something. You guys got that part right. Observe something. And then you ask the question. Okay? Asking a question. Research the topic. You did great up until that point. And this is when you went off the rails. Because what you did and what you continue to do is you start with your conclusion and you work backwards. The part where it says form a hypothesis here, this is the part where you failed. The hypothesis part is where you fell apart, where you went completely off the rails. And this is what you didn't understand about science. You form a hypothesis, you conduct an experiment, you analyze the results, and then you accept or reject the hypothesis. So what does this practically mean? This means you come up with a story. This is the part that when you want to tell when somebody's a grifter, right? How do you distinguish? You use the scientific method. What is the story that you're telling? So what is your hypothesis? What is your story? Oh, the shooter wasn't on the roof. Maybe they were over here. Well, what is the facts and evidence that back that up? You say, oh, the guy that's in custody is not the shooter. Okay, that's a hypothesis. Who is? How do you figure out who the right person is? So the reason why you failed so miserably, and it's pretty sad that you're still going with this when it's already dead and over, honestly. Like the whole Charlie Kirk schizo Israel shit, like it's dead in the water, but you do you if it makes you feel better. That's is where you messed up. What you should have done is you should have come up with a hypothesis for what actually happened. And the reason why you didn't do that isn't just that you're brain dead, but it's because if you did that, your hypothesis will get falsified. You're not willing to put yourself up to the same level of scrutiny that you hold other analysis. If you presented your own hypothesis, then it would get torn to shreds. And that's the reason why Ian Carroll will never tell you what he thinks happened. Because if Ian Carroll were to say what he thinks happened, then everybody would absolutely shred that. It's much easier to not have a hypothesis and just say that you're just asking questions and pretend like you're trying to solve something. Now, if you go back to my early live streams, where most of you are not here yet, I did this with MH370. With MH370, you'll find on many podcasts, people ask me, what was your methodology for figuring out what happened with the plane? And I would say, I took it like an investigation. I said, come up with a story that makes sense. Take all the evidence, pull the evidence in, come up with a story, and then eliminate the story or, falsify the story if the evidence doesn't fit with the story until you reach a story which is supported by the evidence that's out there. This is quite literally the exact opposite of what the schizos are doing with the Charlie Kirk situation. The exact opposite. So what you're doing is not based on science, not based on logic, not based on reason. It's based on emotion. It's based on distrust of the government. And you'll never reach the right conclusion. And the last thing I want to say is if you're a type of person that you believe, oh, if the government says it, it must be a lie. That's the type of view where you basically say everything is a lie that's out there. You're going to be a very, very sad person in life if you choose to live your life that way. So that's it, guys. Okay. Yeah, it's a never-ending asking questions situation. Guys, I think I'm going to change the I'm going to make an exception here, do these super chats right now. But from now on, probably the super chats will be at the end of the live streams. Okay. The PEDs. I don't know what those mean, but thank you very much, War Ranch LLC, for that donation. Pippi, Hella Ashton. Wow, huge donation. I don't know how much that is in American dollars, but thank you. Talk about Lockheed Martin baited us on the Skunkworks advertisement. Yeah. They did totally bait us, by the way, guys. They put out the advertisement. It was clearly plasma in their advertisement. And then the next day is like some new drone kind of situation. They're like, well, why not like show an image of the drone instead of like some weird thing about plasma? Now, let me tell you on the flip side, though. Lockheed Martin and the defense contractors in general have been incorporating like electromagnetic, electrogravitic science into their designs. They've been doing that, and they've been doing that for a long time. Probably at least since the F-117 Nighthawk, B-2 bomber, etc. They use electrogravitics to help produce lift. They use the plasma as a plasma sheath, which reduces drag. These are all concepts that are directly connected to zero-point energy. So I hope that answers your question, Pippi. It's not really worth taking a look at the video clip. It's super short anyway. Sam Fisher, sorry, dumb question. No dumb questions. But when the orbs are displacing, decoupling the plane from space-time, why doesn't every atom of the plane start disintegrating, dematerializing? Because that's not what's happening. You're making a bubble. You're making a bubble. When you make a bubble, you don't dematerialize the stuff inside the bubble. You displace your object. You displace it from space-time. In fact, I mean, there is actually a real possibility that what we're looking at is what we think of as an annihilation event. Just because the plane's zapping out here doesn't necessarily mean it's appearing over here in one piece. When we look at ER equals EPR, one of the hypotheses that Susskind and others have proposed is that a black hole is basically spitting out the material just randomly or, you know, in some direction like that. So if we don't have this wormhole technology perfected, it is possible that the plane disappears on one side, and when it comes out on the other, you know, nothing good, basically. Okay, now let's get to it, guys. We got a lot to get through here. This is going to be a long interview. I'm going to play this at 1.25 speed. So here is the Eric W. Davis. You guys can find the direct link in the description if you want it. For the record, if you do not know, that is Dave Rossi. I've interviewed Dave Rossi several times. He's one of my good friends. And Eric W. Davis is basically somebody that nobody can get an interview with. There is a somewhat infamous interview with him now where he was eating a salad at lunch, and he seems to have gotten ambushed by Jesse Michaels' crew. And they interviewed him, and it was okay. But Eric, you know, so people are wondering, a lot of people are wondering, you know, what's going on here? You know this guy. What I'll say is, like, when we watch this, people are going to go, this is like really on the nose for what we've been talking about. Truthfully, I believe that this is somewhat planned disclosure. This is a way for them to get this information out in the public avenue. They know I have a huge following. They know I'm going to promote the hell out of this stuff. They know the UFO community will as well. So some of these types of conversations are definitely a controlled mechanism to disperse this information. That's all I'm basically going to say about it. Okay, here we go, guys. Right off the bat.
This question comes from David Chester. He says that I know Eric has mentioned the work of Ford and Spater in regards to negative energy, and he also likes Sakharov's view on gravity as an emergent phenomena from quantum fields. Ford and Spater show that in certain cases there can be negative energy densities found in certain areas. However, in Eric's view, even if we could pull this off technologically, does this actually give a realization of something like an Alcubierre drive with negative energy density? I'll start there before I go to the next questions from...
Whoa, we're starting off strong right away. It says, that's from David Chester, who's a physicist. And he's saying, Eric Davis likes Sakharov's view. Oh, yeah, Sakharov's view. Basically that the zero-point energy is the fabric of space-time. And he's saying, does this open the door to negative energy, therefore warp drives and wormholes? If you've been following me, you know the answer is yes.
Mr. Chester.
Okay, well, the direct short of it is yes. The answer to this question is yes. And the same would also be true for traversable wormholes and in kind of an anti-gravity implementation, because anti-gravity is described by general relativity theory, is predicted by...
Well, chat, we're 1 minute in and we've already got our first Yahtzee. Yes, there you go. It does open the door to negative energy. It opens the door to wormholes and warp drives. Humanly traversable wormholes. There you go, right off the bat.
General relativity theory. So So the long of it is that for those of you who are not familiar with the Ford Spader papers in the Physical Review D peer-reviewed journals that are published by the American Physical Society, they were two outstanding papers. One, a geometrical optics analysis, and the other one, a quantum field theory analysis of that geometrical optics of a parabolic cylindrical mirror. Now, what is that? Well, just think of a parabola, a mirror that's like a parabola, but stretch it out along the axis of the parabola. What you have is a long parabola. And you see these in solar thermal power generators. And so what they do is they have these parabolic cylindrical mirrors in rows and rows and rows out on flat, empty land. And at the focal line of that mirror, instead, a parabola would have a focal point. But a cylindrical version of a parabola, called the parabolic cylindrical mirror, would have a focal line. So along that focal line, you'll have a pipe, a thin pipe. And inside that pipe is some sort of high heat conducting fluid. So the sun's light will be reflected off the mirror and onto the focal line to heat up that liquid. And that hot liquid would then be pumped out one or the other end of the mirror, and it probably would be hot enough to create steam. And so it would turn a steam generator to produce electricity. That's how I recall it working from back in the 70s when I first studied about
a parabolic cylindrical mirror. Okay, right here, I'm already getting freaked out. And the reason why I'm getting freaked out is that, let me show you something else that I have up here. I'm thinking about nukes. Right away, because when I was reading Friedwart Winterberg's textbook about thermonuclear weapons, it's all about focusing your X-rays onto a single point. If you're not sure what we're talking about parabolic mirror. We're talking about reflecting the light, okay? And we're talking about just like this. We're talking about just like this. You're watching the light beam. Can this go faster? What is this? You're watching the light beam bend around. And because of its shape, it always bounces back towards the middle, right? It keeps bouncing back towards the middle because it's parabolic like this. What Eric W. Davis is saying is if you turn this into like a tube, it'll basically make a line. It'll produce a line. If you make a tube, a parabolic tube, and you shoot the light through it, it's going to produce a line. And this is very similar. If you go look at the shapes of the thermonuclear devices for thermonuclear detonations in terms of how they were getting fission reactions to trigger your fusion reaction, you put the fusion material right in the center there. And then you focus the energy onto that point. So what Eric W. Davis is saying in this interview speaks directly to thermonuclear weapons. I don't think he's talking about in that context, but it speaks to it.
That in advanced high school physics. So that's what this is. This is a parabolic cylindrical mirror, but on the focal line, you don't have a pipe of anything. Instead, it's just space, the empty space.
Right.
And Ford and Spader showed that, which is what we all know in quantum field theory already, a mirror will reflect quantum vacuum fluctuations. That's the quantum noise of all of the quantum fields that produce.
The mirror will reflect the quantum vacuum fluctuations also? I had not heard that before. So he's saying here, it's not just light. It's not just if you shoot a light beam in there, but the actual 0 point energy will also have this effect happen to it. So we can potentially manipulate the 0 point energy, not just with the Casimir effect. The Casimir effect, we take our plates, right? And we squeeze these plates together. And this is our boundary conditions. He's saying, don't worry about the plates. Make a tube. Make a parabolic mirror like this. And then you'll get these jets shooting out either way. Chat, I'm starting to get freaked out. Hold up. Wait for it. Wait. Kind of looks like this, I feel like. Where there's jets shooting out of either end. Doesn't that look like something we've seen before or sound like something we've seen before? In fact, haven't I said it feels like there might be a tube inside of these things? What if this concept he's talking about is exactly what we're seeing with these orbs? What if this is why there's dark lines in front and behind? It's at a very minimum, it's analogous to what we're seeing there. Could be even more than that.
All of the elementary particles that we're made out of, including the interaction forces of which they exchange when they collide with each other or glance with each other or merge or bounce off each other. So we have elementary particles and we have their interaction forces, which are described as quantum fields. And those quantum fields, when you shut off all temperature, all heat, all energy in a region of the vacuum, those fields classically should be zero. Because if you turn off all the energy input, there should be nothing there. There should be no field.
Right.
The field should be quiescent, but that's not true. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle in quantum mechanics dictates that nothing is zero at absolute zero.
Right.
So you'll have fluctuations of the important observable quantities in each of those fields. And that gives rise to what we call 0 point fluctuations. 0 point refers to zero energy, state of zero energy, or ground state energy. The bottom minimum energy of some sort of a system, whether it be the ground state electron orbiting an atom in an orbital shell, or it's the zero temperature vacuum state, zero photon or zero particle vacuum state, where there's nothing there. And the quantity that describes that state is not zero. That's a wave function. That's a probability function. What we would classically describe as zero would be.
So right there, he's referencing 0 point energy, guys. If you're not familiar, he's referencing 0 point energy right here. He's saying, well, classically, we would say, okay, well, this stuff's all canceling out. There's going to be nothing there. But he says Heisenberg uncertainty principle says that there is something there. And this speaks directly to the pendulum that never stops swinging. And the quantum level, the pendulum never stops swinging. So even if we create a system where classically everything should cancel out, that's not what's going to happen in real life. I'm going to fast forward this just a little bit because he rants for a few minutes here. He rants for a few minutes, but then he kind of gets back into it. Here we go.
Non-zero for quantum vacuum fluctuations. And how many modes are there? Infinite. There's an infinite number of modes. They run from 0 to infinity. So these fluctuating modes in all the quantum fields bounce off the mirror, and they're going to be reflected onto the focal line. And that means that focal line is going to collect energy. Now, the analysis these guys did was on the quantum electrodynamics. So they're looking at the quantized electromagnetic.
So he's saying if you create this parabolic mirror, it's going to start focusing energy. It's going to start focusing energy. So we've now created a situation where we got our tube, right? We've got our tube. It's focusing energy up along a line. And now you're going to have this energy being focused on this line, potentially shooting out either side.
Field. And that's light. So this is what we can engineer with mirrors, is light. And we have instrumentation that can measure light particles and quantum vacuum fluctuations in that term, in terms of that. So this is what you're reflecting from the mirror onto the focal line is quantum vacuum energy. Now there are angle prescriptions, in other words, how open or angularly wide the parabola is, or how narrow down and small that angle of extension. And I don't remember the name of that from geometry. Gee, I know parabolas and hyperbolas very well, but I don't remember the name of the angle. I'll call it the aspect angle. It's just the angle. You got that point at the center of the parabola. It forms an axial line, and so you'll measure the angle from that line to the surface of the parabola. So I'll call that an aspect angle. It's probably not the correct technical term. So you're going to have a dependence based on the mathematics of what angles you can use, what angles you will measure, what type of vacuum energy. So if the angle falls within a certain range of degrees, like the angle is greater than or equal a minimum number of degrees, or it's less than or equal to a minimum number of degrees, or it's less than, there's a number of degrees less than the angle, which is less than a number of maximum degrees. It could be an inequality like that. Then one of those is going to dictate that the energy density along the focal line is positive. Another range of those angles means that you'll have alternating positive and negative vacuum energy there. And then a third range of angles in the mathematics shows that you'll have manifestly negative energy density along that focal line. And you ask, well, where's all the positive energy going to be in the fluctuations? Well, they're going to be in the space away from the focal line. So this is perfect. This is exactly what you want. You want a concentrated line of finite thickness of negative vacuum energy. That's what this energy is. It's vacuum. It's in the vacuum state.
What it sounds like to me he's saying here is that if you do this, if you create this parabolic mirror configuration, this cylindrical parabolic mirror, that along the focal line, let me make this one, along the focal line, you will get negative energy density, depending on how the angle that you set up of this configuration. And around it, you'll have positive energy. So what he's saying here is that you're going to have positive energy around the focal line and a negative energy of the focal line itself. That's how I interpret it.
of the quantum field. That's why we call it a negative vacuum energy density, because its energy density is not zero and it's not positive, it's negative. And the theorems of differential metric geometry dictate that wherever you have negative vacuum energy, or any kind of negative energy, even a negative pressure, negative stress, negative tension, negative momentum of mass flow or energy flow or flux, you will have a gravitationally repulsive space. The space-time curvature will create a gravitational repulsive effect. In other words, you should have a wormhole or a warp drive. Now that answers a good chunk of
Booyah! Hell yes, baby. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Wherever you have a negative energy pressure, negative energy density, you should have a warp drive or a wormhole. Let's go. That right there is saying that if you produce negative energy, you are producing a warp drive, and he's directly connecting a warp drive to a wormhole. What have I told you guys? There's 3 levels. Impulse drive, Star Trek impulse drive. We just want to go really slowly. That's our EM drive, right? We're getting a little bit of negative energy, and it pushes us forward. You increase the amount of negative energy. Now you've got a warp drive. You're riding the wave, baby. Riding the wave. If you turn it all the way up, turn that shit up to 11. Turn it up to 11. Boom. Teleportation, wormhole. You've ripped right through space-time.
That question.
Yes, if I may. Sorry.
Just one last step here, and then
Sure.
we'll finish the question.
Sure.
Then the next step is, well, how do we know how to shape it? Well, Einstein's general theory of relativity, his field equation, tell you the properties of that negative energy density must have. We know it has to be a vacuum energy. It doesn't tell you it's a vacuum energy. We just know that it's going to have negative energy density and or negative pressure. And so it just tells you how that energy is distributed in space. And the problem is that's wonderful, but it doesn't tell you how to build it. Right. So that's why we're looking at this mirror as a technique. There are other techniques for building it, but the other techniques we already have that we have existing in the laboratory now, like the Casimir effect, confines the negative vacuum energy between 2 parallel plates that are a micron or less apart. You can't use it. That's confined. That's a confined negative energy vacuum in between those 2 parallel plates. So that's worthless, and it's too feeble. In order to increase the energy density, you've got to get those cavity plates as small as a fraction of the Compton wavelength of an electron, which is like 10 to the negative 35 meters. We can't engineer that, by God. Yeah. And the Casimir effect goes away below 10 nanometers. It's no longer a Casimir effect, so it's no longer a Casimir vacuum. Then squeeze states of light, that's specially prepared laser beams, where you can shift the vacuum's EPF noise in one part of the laser's property to another part. And you're only interested in the part that's squeezed down to where it has negative.
Okay. So this part right here, I have to be honest here. I'm starting to wonder. He's not saying it doesn't work. What Eric W. Davis is saying is that the Casimir effect is, of course, real. I mean, there's no question if it's real. What he's saying is it's too weak. You can't use the Casimir effect to produce a warp drive. He's probably right, actually. Now, the more I think about it, he's saying that we have to find a way to amplify the negative energy. So we're not going to do that by having 2 plates come together. The effect is too weak. But it's not too weak for what Sonny White is doing. This is why Sonny White with Joe Rogan, what did he say? They're looking to power low energy requirement devices. Your free energy microchip is not going to create a wormhole, but your free energy microchip can power a device that doesn't require that much energy. That's why it's a different mechanism. It's something we're looking at for a different purpose. But he also talks about squeeze states of light. Read those DIRDs, guys. If you have not read your Defense Intelligence Reference Document, get on it. Wormholes, warp drives, he talks about how to produce them. And one of them, he says, is squeeze states of light. Basically, what you can do then, okay, if we need a big amount of energy, then let's use a laser. A laser is how you amplify energy. Okay, well then what's the next step? Split off the negative energy portion of the laser from the positive energy portion of the laser. Much like what he talked about with his cylindrical parabolic mirror. If we can split that off and we can increase the energy of our laser, now we have a negative energy laser. That's potentially how we can create our warp drive. It's probably what they're doing with the orbs.
Energy density, but the adjacent, it'll be pulsed, and the adjacent interweaving pulses in between the negative pulses will be humongous positive energy density pulses of vacuum. So we don't know how. I have proposals I published in papers and a chapter in one of my chapters in my Frontiers of Propulsion Science book from the AIAA Press, where I've looked at these concepts like that. But still, the energy density, the negative energy density, is too feeble. But for a Ford-Fader mirror, it might be possible to scale that up. You might be able to intersect multiple focal lines from multiple mirrors that are in an arrangement, and so that could amplify the blob of intersecting focal lines and make.
And there he's talking about, okay, now we can combine our lasers together. If we get one negative energy laser, it might still be too weak, but if we can combine them together, now you might be able to create a much more powerful one. Sounds a lot like a dense plasma focus to me, chat. In fact, that was exactly what George Miley was working on. George Miley was working on how do we get our lasers to all come together? And he said the problem was if you got one laser moving at this speed, it's almost like you're trying to hitch a ride on a moving train. How do you get it to do that? And he said he found out a way to do it. My guess is they figured it out from geometry. But I'm guessing helical formation. Basically, get your lasers to just start all spinning around and sync up. But we'll see.
Create a large amount of negative energy, and you've got to have a huge amount of negative energy, something like the order of 10 to the 44 joules per cubic meter. So it's huge just to produce a 1 meter measurable curvature of space-time.
Right.
So that ends my answer to that question.
Perfect. Thank you. And if I may jump in very quickly to add to this, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I do believe that in theory, in principle, for some type of gravitational repulsion effect, I believe I read this from one of your papers in the past. You don't, I guess, in theory, need negative vacuum energy. You just need negative pressure. You can.
Yeah, negative pressure, but we don't have. I haven't seen quantum fields. You have to go. This is a topic of quantum field theory.
Right.
This is heavy duty math and heavy duty pedagogical physics.
Right.
So in quantum field theory, I'm not familiar with any quantum matter fields or quantum force propagating fields that have negative pressure. You in a certain prepared quantum state. You can get negative vacuum, you can get negative energy density out of it, but you can't get negative pressure. But we have a natural form of a cosmological energy density that has positive. That's positive. It's a cosmological energy which has a positive energy density, which we measured, and it has the property that it's pressure. The pressure in the field happens to be negative.
Right.
So this is interesting.
We've spoken about this a lot. He's basically saying that gravity is a pressure force. Gravity is a pressure force, so a negative pressure is fundamentally equivalent to negative gravity. Quite simple. Pressure, gravity, anti-pressure, opposite pressure, negative gravity.
Because Einstein's general theory of relativity says that if we reduce his field equations down to the classical old Poisson version of Newtonian gravity, you'll have the general relativistic version now. That's the corrected version, because remember, Newton's theory of gravity, it turned out to be wrong. It turns out to be useful for low energy, low speed, non-relativistic regimes like orbital mechanics of satellites, spacecraft, and planets, and galaxies, and whatnot. But there's precision errors involved because the theory is incorrect. And to overcome the precision errors and incorrect predictions of what you want to measure, which is greater than the precision errors. These are significant predictional problems, like the perihelion shift in Mercury's orbit around the sun was a big issue that led to.
Basically, this right here is Eric Davis saying cosmology is fake and gay. Basically, cosmology is fake and gay, and we look observationally out there, and it doesn't line up. It doesn't line up with our theories. It's close, but if you actually go down to the precision level, it doesn't work anymore. This is what I've been saying, is that we can't even understand why our solar system is stable. Why did Earth not get sucked out of our solar system due to Jupiter, this huge planet that's outside of us? Why does that not rip us out? Slowly but surely, it should be nudging us further and further away. There's many other examples, but that's just one that I give that's a simple one to understand. And so Eric Davis is saying here that we are missing something. We are missing something, and Sakharov's view that space is not empty, the 0-point energy, will solve that. Solves it.
The first great success for confirming general relativity theory. So you got to use Poisson's version of general relativity. And that says, and I'm going to skip all the details, but the equation is actually even more simple. It says you have the energy density plus 3 times the pressure, whereas the original Poisson equation for Newtonian fluid or Newtonian mass is the pressure plus the energy density or mass density plus the pressure. But here in general relativity, it says to take proper account of the effects of curved space-time, you're going to have energy density plus 3 times the pressure. So pressure creates 3 times more gravitational force than the energy or mass density alone of whatever mass or massive system you're evaluating, like a planet, a star, a galaxy of stars, or a cluster of galaxies.
Right.
So dark energy, this is our natural form of energy that exists cosmologically. And I'm not going to get into the debate on whether it's a constant energy density versus whether it's dynamically changing in time.
He's about to now explain. I can already tell where he's going. I actually haven't watched most of this at this point. I've only seen from now on. I've only seen a few clips. But now he's saying, okay, dark energy. I mean, if you read between the lines here, he's saying, hey, turns out this dark energy, that this is going to help. If we think this dark energy is the 0 point energy, now we're going to be able to solve those gaps that we just mentioned from the classical view of physics.
Been recent evidence that's suggesting that it is dynamical. They've had this emerge on and off since Reese and Perlmutter first discovered dark energy, measured it, and derived this equation of state from the empirical data. And they got the Nobel Prize for that too, just in the 2010s. So basically what that means is that you have positive energy density rho, and you've got to add 3 times a negative pressure, because that's what they determined. It's got the magnitude of positive energy density is equal to the magnitude of the negative pressure. So in magnitude, they're the same number, and that number is 1 nanojoule per cubic meter. That's the unit. Yeah, 1 nanojoule per cubic meter. So that's the positive energy density, and so the absolute algebraic expression for that is negative 1 nanojoule per cubic meter for the pressure. So the reason why the universe is accelerating outwards is because you've got 3 times that pressure, that negative pressure, and that's a larger negative number than the positive energy density in dark energy. So you're going to get a net negative combined result. Like I think 1 unit of negative energy of negative pressure cancels the positive energy density. That 1 plus 1 minus 1 equals 0. That's what it would be. Then you're left with negative 2 times the pressures left over. So negative 2 times the pressure is what you've got a net gravitational repulsion of to push space-time out to create the inflationary big.
So he's saying that the negative pressure is actually overwhelming the attractive force, which causes the universe to expand. There, I think I explained it very shortly there.
Bank scenario.
Wow. What do you, if I may ask one more thing before we move on, what do you say about the debates out there that some people claim, dark energy is, the concept of dark energy is nonsense. What it really is are, quantum vacuum.
Hold on. I'm sorry, I got to sidetrack us. What chat? What is Eric Davis wearing here? Somebody pointed this out, and it's bugging me out. It looks like my man here is like strapped in or something. Like what is going on with, like, there's some straps on this dude's shoulder. Do you see these straps like on his shoulders here? I swear, if he's in some kind of bondage thing where he's explaining physics, I'm not going to be able to deal with it. I'm never going to be able to unsee it now, actually. I'm not going to be able to unsee it now. What is going on? Why are there straps on his shoulder? Why does it look like he's on an airplane, like buckled up? Okay. We'll just try not to think about it.
Fluctuation, 0 point vacuum. Yeah,
I know the answer. That's a really short answer. The equation of state, rho, which is energy density, and we're not going to use the mass density version because that's not you really don't measure. You can't measure mass. You only measure energy, and you divide that result by speed of light squared to get the mass. Okay, so rho is equal to negative p, and what did I want to say about that? Okay, ask your question again.
Sorry, I had asked about to some people out there that say that the concept of dark energy is nonsense, and that what it really is that there's vacuum fluctuations and 0 point fields and so on.
Yeah, and what I was going toward is the equation of state. So the equation of state, Reese and Perlmutter measured, is rho equals negative p. Okay, so rho is equal to negative p, positive energy density rho, and it's equal to negative pressure.
Right.
Okay, all right. That's the equation of state. Well, guess what the equation of state for a quantum vacuum is? It's rho equals negative p.
Okay.
Boom. Okay, I don't know what all the math he just said, but he just said the exact same equation twice. He said, hey, the dark energy is negative rho equals negative p. And he goes, you know what the vacuum modes are? Rho equals negative p. Chat. Interesting. Very interesting.
So yeah, I see what you're getting at. So in other words, you can say
yeah. So for any quantum field that has an equation of state, it's always rho equals negative p.
Got you. So in other words, you could say that they're conceptually one and the same, just different ways of looking.
Exactly. It's a vacuum energy, yeah. And
Right.
right now we don't have any other
They're
hypothesis.
conceptually the same. It's just another way of looking at it. Hold up. Wait for it. Where is it? Boom! Gotcha, bitch.
This is that is terribly persuasive otherwise.
Right. And speaking of which, one last thing before I move on to another question here. Again, and please tell me if you've answered this, but David Chester would like to know, does Sakharov's work in particular provide any hints towards whether it's possible to actually get warp drives from vacuum fluctuations?
No. His work doesn't address that. His work is addressing what the fundamental cause of space-time curvature is.
Okay.
So his 1967 Soviet paper, which was published in the English version of the Soviet journals in 68, I think it was, which is Sakharov's theorem, is basically that he wants to relate the Einstein's general theory of relativity's space-time metric. The metric is just a single equation. It's a single line equation that provides a measuring rule, a ruler in curved space-time. And what it does, it describes the curved space-time geometry of some space-time that you're in.
Gotcha.
Okay. And that space-time could be the space-time that the Earth produces, the sun, that's called Schwarzschild spacetimes, or black holes, or negative energy, negative pressure, or both, and things like that.
Sakharov, I'm going to skip ahead a couple minutes here to go because, Eric Davis is very long-winded. But he's basically saying that, Sakharov was the one that's saying space-time is this medium of energy. And if so, now this opens the door to negative energy, as we described. This opens the door to us manipulating and being able to produce these wormholes. So this is the logical extension of general relativity from Einstein, who he himself believed that wormholes, that space was a malleable, solid, or a flexible solid. This is the extension of how do we quantify this? How do we unify this with quantum mechanics, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle? So Sakharov opened the door to this. And ironically enough, one of my favorite clips is when I say this to Candace Owens, like literally said this exact thing to Candace Owens when I did her interview. I said, Sakharov was the one in 1967 who opened the door to this physics. Now, I'm not saying that I came up with that. I literally just stole it from these guys, but there you go. They're saying it themselves now. Okay, let's skip ahead a minute.
Straight up geometry. I'm saying this is me pretending to be Sakharov here in the third person. I'm saying that that's geometrical. We all know that physical space-time is not geometry. Astronauts, when they fly up in Earth orbit or they fly out to the moon, they're not moving through lines, points, curves, and manifolds and mappings of functions. They're moving through a physical space-time, and we've already established from quantum theory, field theory, that physical space-time is filled with quantum vacuum fluctuations.
Right.
If you get rid of all the matter, remember what I said.
Yes.
Nothing is zero. You may be in the only thing that's zero is you're in a zero particle, zero photon, zero W boson, Z boson, zero graviton, zero. Well, graviton, that's a quantized gravity. Forget that for now. But a zero gluon state and zero particle states, you still have quantum vacuum fluctuation per the.
What he's saying right here, this is so wild. He's basically saying right there that even if you remove everything, you still have the 0 point energy. So imagine removing all the light, make this whole screen dark, and removing all the heat. You would say, oh, there's nothing left. But I could still move through that, right? I could still walk through it. There is still something there. The 0 point energy is there. So what does that mean? If you were to remove the 0 point energy, then what? Well, now you've changed space-time, because that 0 point energy is the physical manifestation of distance. It's the physical manifestation of time itself. Why does it take time for me to go from here to here? Because what's in between here, even if I remove all the light and all the heat, is 0 point energy. This is why I'm a 0 point energy influencer, because 0 point energy is the basis for everything.
Heisenberg uncertainty principle. And so that should be the physical space-time from which curved space-time geometry emerges. So think of hydrodynamics. Do you know that it wasn't until somebody in the 19th century derived the hydrodynamic equations, and then in the mid, exactly 100 years ago this year, quantum theory was born. When quantum theory was born, those guys that were looking at atoms and molecules as a fluid, or in terms of a fluid, realized, oh my goodness, it is from quantum mechanics that fluid mechanics or hydrodynamics emerges. Because
hydrodynamics, chat, does that sound familiar? Hydrodynamics, you treat the medium, the 0-point energy, as a fluid, as a electromagnetic superfluid substance. Same thing that Salvatore Pais said. Exact same thing that Salvatore Pais said.
Is it the binding between atoms and the atoms that form molecules, and then those molecules bind to other molecules chemically. So those things are all ultimately rooted in quantum mechanics of atoms and molecules. Well, out of that emerges the equations of hydrodynamics.
Huh.
Okay, so the same thing for gravity. So Sakharov saying, hey, we have a physical space-time. It's basically quantum vacuum fluctuations in the vacuum state. So how do we get curved space-time out of that? Well, you just basically say that you're going to relate the metric elasticity of space-time, which is the metric tensor. You got to have a certain equation that expresses Sakharov's theorem, or it's a conjecture, I should say. It's really a conjecture, and you have to relate that to some equation to the opposite side of the equal sign that says your quantum vacuum fluctuations are going to add up to in some particular way that produces space-time curvature. And that's just the fundamental aspect of what Sakharov is trying to solve, and it doesn't apply to warp drives and wormholes because that's an application of Einstein's theory. Gotcha. That's just an application. It's not a
I mean, holy shit, chat. What he's saying here is that Sakharov set up the ability for us to explain what curvature of space-time really means. We talk about curvature of space-time, but what does that mean? It's not like I feel like I'm going through a curve when I walk around, or even if I go in outer space, I'm not going to feel like I'm going through a curve. He's saying that the 0-point energy is what the representation of the curvature of space-time. The 0-point energy is that manifestation. So he's saying that Sakharov didn't figure out warp drives and wormholes, but he set the framework. He set the foundation for how we can do it. He said, hey, how can we actually bend space-time? Well, we can't bend it until we understand what it is. And now that we understand what it is 0-point energy, then manipulating the 0-point energy will effectively, quote unquote, bend space-time. Bending space-time is it's just words. It's just how we describe it. What is actually happening? This is why I think the MH370 videos are so significant. Because we watch this plane vanish. The clouds don't even move. The plane is just gone. Seems impossible for the human mind to comprehend. But when you understand physics and you understand, oh, we're not actually like bending space-time. We're manipulating the 0-point energy, and the 0-point energy is the representation of space-time itself. And that may sound somewhat circular, but from a perspective of how to like build upon the foundations of the science is very important to understand what are we starting with and how do we build up to finally get to the point where we can say, okay, now we can produce something that can make a warp drive. Now we can produce something that can make a wormhole.
Fundamental. Sakharov's conjecture or Sakharov's model is not a application. It's a fundamental aspect of where space-time curvature really comes from.
Got you. Well, thank you so much for that. The next question is, and this may be quite a bit to cover or maybe not. Do you think, does Dr. Davis think that the somewhere in the military-industrial complex, somebody or some group, whether military or private, is pursuing his wormhole teleportation physics? He said that Dr. Davis said that General Lanny held up your paper as the type of research he wanted done in the Air Force Research Laboratory. So in other words, do you think someone somewhere is pursuing your wormhole teleportation concepts?
This is my question. He didn't say my name, which is quite interesting. He said David Chester's name. He had no problem. He doesn't say that this question comes from Ashton Forbes. That's fine. Whatever. Okay, let's see what he's got to say.
No, I happen to know for a fact nobody is. Because just because you write a AFRL study or a DIA, DIRD, a Defense Intelligence Reference Document that's published by the Defense Intelligence Agency, just because you publish those studies on those topics doesn't mean that immediately somebody's going to run out and then put out competitive bids and get appropriation from Congress to fund studies or fund theoretical developments, to build something and then fund to follow on like a phase 2 prototyping of a technology and then a phase 3 deployment of the technology and possible commercialization. No, that isn't what follows. What follows is you've got the study done. It's in the record, the Defense Department's record. It's up to people in the defense labs to...
Okay. Let me stop Eric W. Davis here. his logic doesn't work right here. What he's saying here just doesn't even work at all. He's saying, okay, he gets asked, are they working? He goes, I know for a fact that nobody's working on it. First of all, there's no chance you can know for a fact that nobody's doing it. Like, that's not a thing. You can't prove a negative. You can't prove a negative, right? So I'm already skeptical right off the bat when he's claiming an unknowable thing and he's claiming to know it as a fact. And then instead of actually arguing how he would know such a thing or why, he just says it doesn't work like that. The way that it works is that just because you write a paper doesn't mean people are automatically built. Yeah, nobody's saying that, dude. Now you're arguing against a straw man. So he immediately first claims that he knows nobody's working on it, and then he creates a straw man argument and goes, well, the way it works is this. That's not what the question was, buddy. The question was, is somebody working on it? And I know for a fact, 100% they were working on it because we're watching MH370 get zapped out of the sky. So I don't know what's up with Eric W. Davis. The dude is definitely 100% gatekeeping. I don't know if he's got an NDA that says he has to lie about certain topics, but there's no fucking way that General Lanny in 2005 was holding up his teleportation physics study going, this is the kind of research I want to do in my labs. And Eric W. Davis can say, I know for a fact that nobody's doing that. Yes, we know that just because a scientific paper was written doesn't mean that somebody's automatically doing it. But it also doesn't mean that they're not doing it either. That was the point of the question. So it's a really weird way that he's deflecting this question.
To grab that report, and if they got the competency to handle that type of research, then they need to go forward and they need to move up through their chain of command a proposal for or request for congressional appropriation to fund it. And unfortunately, when you work in the labs, you don't have freedom to do what you want. Right. You have to do what is required. What are the requirements of the warfighter, of the combatant commanders? That comes down to the labs to dictate what they're going to have to do to solve the advanced technical problems. And they do basic physics as well, because there are applications that go beyond the basic physics. Well, I should really say they do advanced applied physics research to develop new technologies and techniques and capabilities that evolve into a technology that warfighters and combat units and combatant commands need. And so, but unfortunately,
this is pretty interesting here, though, what he's saying, because he's saying that they do develop new technologies and new capabilities. So this speaks directly to the idea that they would take his paper and start to figure out, can we develop new technologies based on these concepts? They absolutely have figured this shit out. No question. If it's true that 0-point energy is real, Sakharov's real, they've been working on it secretly, figuring out how to make new weapons out of it. And of course, they're not going to be honest about it. They have to protect that from our adversaries. That's the reason why this is being secret. It's all about military weaponization. Welcome to the real world, chat. It's all about military weaponization. Therefore, us peasants get nothing.
There's no requirement for the Department of Defense to build wormholes and warp drives.
Got you. Thank you for that.
Of course, there's no like. What kind of argument is that? There's no requirement to build warp drives. Duh. There's no requirement to build anything. There's no requirement to build anything. If that's your argument, then you would say we don't have any technology whatsoever. Military doesn't have anything. No requirement to build directed energy weapons, so we must not have those either. Yeah, but they're sort of like pretty damn cool and pretty damn useful, so I absolutely guarantee. Now, maybe they don't have them in acknowledged programs, but definitely unacknowledged programs will have them.
Next question is, does Dr. Davis believe the, quote, free energy microchips by the likes of Garrett Modell, Paul Thibodeau, and Sonny White have any scientific merit? I will say very quickly that I know Mr. Garrett Modell in the last 3 to 4 years has done some presentations claiming that there may be some, they're claiming some type of net output energy in the microwatt range of a Casimir chip that they have, just to give some context in case you weren't familiar. But
this is another one of my questions. I did listen to the answer to this, and he gives another sus answer again, chat. This was another one of my questions. Here we go.
Yeah. So, are you talking about Paul Violet, or is that how
Paul? No, Paul Thibodeau. I'm not sure.
I don't know
who that is. I've never heard of him.
Okay,
but I do know that.
So I need to point this out before he answers. Paul Thibodeau. I'm going to keep it brief. He was using graphene, and basically he made a very thin graphene layer, and it bounces up and down like this. When the thermal fluctuations go past this graphene layer, it causes it to bounce up and down, much like a trampoline. much like a trampoline. And he's able to produce a free energy battery off of this, a battery that never runs out. So let's see what Eric W. Davis's response is to these questions.
You named another guy.
Sonny White and Guillermo.
No, Sonny White. Yeah, Sonny White wasn't doing energy research, and his work is wrong physics, because I've known him personally. I knew him personally for many, many years. My coworkers and I at Earth Tech International Incorporated and the Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin had reviewed his work when he presented it to us personally, and he failed to answer key technical, key foundational questions that we asked about his developments. Problems.
Okay, this is peak Redditor right here. This is actually peak Redditor arguments. Like, now I'm super sus of Eric W. Davis. He goes, Sonny White doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, the moment you say that, you're attacking him. You're attacking the person, not the argument. I'm super skeptical. Because Sonny White's whole basis is all based on the same 0-point energy Casimir effect stuff that's going on. Like, it's definitely not nonsense. And Eric Davis knows that it's not nonsense. So instead of it actually attacking the arguments, he's going right at Sonny White. He's saying Sonny White was not able to adequately describe how it works for us. What? You're like, oh, he wasn't smart enough. So he wasn't smart enough. Therefore, we're just going to dismiss it. Well, does it work, though? This is what I say. Like, this is the same bullshit that they've been doing for free energy devices for, 50 years. Whether it is Stanley Meyer's water-powered car or if it is magnetic motors. Then what they do is they'll say, well, the person that built it doesn't know how it works, therefore it's bullshit. That's not how the world works. Does the device actually do what they say? Who cares if they can describe how it works? The whole reason why they can't describe how it works is because they've been taught, we've been literally brainwashed into an incorrect view of the world. This is so crazy that this is his argument. It's a terrible argument by Eric W. Davis here.
That we found to address the problems that we discovered in his mathematics and the problems that we discovered in the principles that he was doing, or the theoretical foundation that he laid for his concept. And he was doing a quantum vacuum thruster, not quantum energy extraction. And there are all kinds
of... well, now I'm super sus about it. Now I just realized he's not even talking about the same thing. Sonny White, he goes, he's not doing energy extraction. Yes, he is. Did you not see? Like, okay, that right there was Eric W. Davis saying that Sonny White is not doing energy extraction. He's doing a thruster, propulsion. So obviously he's talking about the wrong thing right here, which is pretty weird. How can I prove that? Here's how I can prove it.
It's cool to think that, maybe you could come up with a technology that...
Hey, Eric Davis, have you heard of this guy called, what's his name? Joe Rogan. Have you heard of Joe Rogan? This is Sonny White on Joe Rogan. Tell me again that he's not doing energy extraction.
Provides useful power today for things like this. Maybe, if we put it in aggregate, if we put a lot of them together, right, we could get to a point where...
What is that chip?
This is just a 3D print of having a bunch of those little chips that are 5 millimeters by 5 millimeters, 1.5 volts, 25 microamps. If we add a bunch of those together at a very large extreme, that particular board might generate 3.4 watts. And so that board could recharge your phone in 3 hours. And so imagine a scenario where you had a phone that's pretty resilient, that for the most parts, you'd never have to plug it in. That might be pretty useful.
Might be pretty useful. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead. He's definitely talking about energy extraction. He's talking about energy. He's definitely not talking about propulsion. So Eric Davis is already 0 for 2 here. He attacked the man personally instead of explaining why he was wrong. And then he clearly is referencing the wrong thing. Pretty weird, man. Pretty weird. Keep going.
Problems, because basically that goes back to what he got his PhD in physics in. He got it doing a dissertation on...
I'm skipping past this because, dude, now he's saying, like, then he just starts literally attacking his education. It's like, oh, he didn't get his PhD in the right thing. What are you talking about, dude?
And some of those courses, a few of them were in general relativity and quantum field theory that I went instead of 1 or 2 semesters.
And now he's talking about courses that the dude took. This has nothing to do with the topic anymore. Oh, he didn't take the right courses. And what the fuck? It's like so crazy how this guy gaslights and comes up with these bullshit excuses.
So until you take a graduate quantum quantum mechanics and quantum field theory. So Garrett with Bernie Heisch.
Okay, so this is actually good. Now it gets good. Get ready. Okay, so basically he doesn't know Paul Thibodeau. He totally messes up and botches the question related to Sonny White. And now Garrett Modell, because we've got 3 free energy microchips going on here, guys. And yeah, I will go ahead and guarantee you that Eric W. Davis has got at least 2 boosters, chat. At least 2 boosters. I guarantee you, too, if you talk about Donald Trump with this guy, he's going to go full TDS. Full TDS, chat.
Because the stuff that Garrett had been working on prior to that is all the stuff that Hal Puthoff had invented but did not patent. And so Garrett with Bernie Heisch at Lockheed Martin in Advanced Technology Center in Sunnyvale, California, took Hal's ideas, including adding their own, and patented it. And those are great ideas. And
holy shit. Boom! Are you kidding me? Did you guys hear what he just said? He just said, oh, my thing's too loud. He just said that it was Garrett Modell and Bernard Heisch with their free energy microchip. They took Hal Puthoff's patent. They took Hal Puthoff's idea and they stole it and they patented it. I had no idea that free energy microchip came directly from Hal Puthoff. Well, that explains a lot. That explains. He's straight up snitching out here, chat. He's snitching on people. Eric Davis, EWD, bro. Snitches get stitches. Snitches get stitches, bro. I don't think Garrett Modell is going to appreciate you outing him like that. No wonder Bernard Heisch and Ruda and Hal Puthoff were all writing these scientific papers together. They were all working together. They all came up with these ideas collectively, or however you want to call it, making money off each other, making patents off each other. This is nuts. Okay, now I'm about 1,000,000 times more interested in Garrett Modell's microchip. No wonder Garrett Modell was so sus to me. No wonder he's so sus. I got to send him another email later tonight. Be like, hey, bro. Hey, Professor Modell. You kind of forgot to tell me that you stole Hal Puthoff's idea in those emails that we had back and forth. It's pretty sus that you literally never brought that up when I was asking about how your free energy microchip is going. Interesting, guys.
So I'm just not familiar. Basically, you can't use the Casimir cavity to generate any net energy in a closed thermodynamic engine cycle, because the amount of energy you're going to need to pry those plates apart is going to equal or exceed the amount of energy.
Just stop, Eric. Just stop, EWD. I'm not going to be gaslit by this shit. He's literally giving me the 0 IQ debunker physicist answer right here. There's no way that you can get net energy because in a closed system, stop. It's not a closed system. There's no closed systems. And he goes, if the Casimir effect, if you bring the plates together, you can extract energy, because literally his mentor, Robert Forward, the mentor of Eric W. Davis, is the guy that wrote that paper in 1984. 1984, the person that showed that the Casimir effect can produce energy was Eric W. Davis's mentor. His mentor is the one that did that. And now he's trying to gaslight and try to say, but you'd have to pull the plates apart if you, nobody's doing that. That's not what Garrett Modell is doing. We've reviewed his he has a presentation on YouTube. You guys can find it. Unlocking 0-point energy. That's not what's happening. Garrett Modell is basically creating a cavity, and then it basically works kind of like a trampoline. You go over here, you bounce on the trampoline, you pull out a little bit of energy from the electron orbital, and then you move it over here, and it regains that energy from the 0-point energy. That's what Garrett Modell is doing. And in an open system, you definitely can produce over unity in an open system.
that you get when the plates are collapsed under the attractive force of the vacuum that the vacuum exerts on those two plates. So we did the analysis on it. There's no principle that says you can't extract energy from the vacuum, but the Casimir setup is a conservative energy system. That means what you put into it is what you get out of it, and that means what you get out of it, you're going to have to put back into it to reset the system to its initial configuration.
And this, if I may ask, this is also why, from the perspective of propulsion, the negative energy or the negative vacuum pressure generated between the plates is so negligible compared to what you would need.
That's right. It's like it's tiny. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but the maximum plate separation that you can get and measure Casimir force is a micron. If you want to measure it a stronger Casimir force than that, you got to shrink the you got to push the plates further together. So the distance between the plates shrinks, I should say. It shrinks even smaller. And then, like I said, you got a minimum of 10 nanometers below which you no longer have a Casimir effect.
That's interesting. Below 10 nanometers, the Casimir effect or the Casimir force.
It's a electrodynamic effect involving the electromagnetic properties of the plates.
Got you. So below 10 nanometers, the effects aren't there.
Nope, they're not there. Instead, what you get is the 1/6 power van der Waals force.
Got you. And that for those that may be wondering as they're listening in real time, could you explain the difference between the van der Waals force and the Casimir force once you go?
Well, van der Waals is a molecular force. They've known about it for decades, and they've measured it. But the difference is the Casimir force is 1/4 power of the distance between the plates. The van der Waals force is 1/6 power of the distance between the plates. And
so what here he's saying is that this is interesting. He's saying that something happens. He's saying that you have this Casimir effect, but when you get too close, the van der Waals force begins to take over. The van der Waals force begins to take over instead, and it works differently now. This is kind of interesting. I didn't really think about this.
There's no vacuum energy density in a van der Waals like there is in a Casimir cavity.
Got you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So in other words, just to wrap this up on terms of the Casimir question, when it comes to energy production and or even for propulsion use, the major issue is getting that minute amount of energy to scale up, essentially. And
you can't because let's put it this way. If you're down at the 10 nanometer level, you're seeing the surface of atoms, the surface of the outer electron orbital shells of atoms. Now the electrodynamics of that material is drastically changed. It's no longer the electrodynamics of conducting or insulating walls or plates that form the cavity. Now it's like this very complicated array of atoms that are bound together electronically through interatomic forces that you're now dealing with. And so the fluctuation modes of the vacuum don't see that those plates now become transparent. Literally at that distance, the plates are so transparent you don't have any more fluctuation modes left over. That they can't be trapped. The shorter wavelength fluctuation modes just fly out of there.
That's kind of, I mean, if you could see that through a microscope, that would kind of be probably cool to witness occur. But
we don't have that type of technology.
So that's pretty. The way every time Eric Davis says we don't have that technology, I literally just never. Every time Eric Davis says we don't have that, I just immediately assume that we do. And we can use like these gravitational waves can produce microscopes that could see things at super tiny scales. What Dave is saying there, and what Eric W. Davis is saying there is that when you get to such a small scale, these super tiny scales, now you're essentially between, like if I take my atom here and I rip my electron off of it, our plasma, he's saying now the scales are getting so small that you're able to like slip between the electron and the atom, the ion. If you can slip between them, now the electrodynamics breaks down. When you get to such a small level, now our understanding of electromagnetism is going to break down entirely because now it's too complex. It's not as simple as like, oh, I've got one thing over here and I got one thing over here. Now we've got this fuzzy cloud of positive and negative charge and it gets very complicated. That's what he's saying here.
So what's our next question?
Sure. Next question actually is an interesting one, and I decided to include it simply because this has been a recent revelation, which is that this question comes from online JK Philly fan who asks, Dr. Davis, Evgeny Podkletnov recently spoke on Tim Ventura's podcast claiming that using a toroidal solenoid setup with a 10 to 11x harmonic frequency ratio in the terahertz range created rotating magnetic fields. Mr. Podkletnov claims this generates torsion fields and a gravitational well that lifts his device for 15 to 20 seconds. With your expertise in warp drive metrics, Dr. Davis, could this harmonic ratio be key to including localized space-time perturbations strong enough for scaled-up gravity modification?
Podkletnov is well known for speaking technobabble. It's just pseudoscience. There's no real physics there. He's just making it up as he goes.
And to that point, I don't believe he demonstrated any of his claims on.
Nope, he hasn't successfully yet. As a matter of fact, the research team and the research leader.
Shit, bro. He's going harder on Eugene Plotkinov than I went on Ian Carroll last night. Bro, chill out, Eric W. Davis. Chill out, homie.
Leadership of PhDs at General Motors Advanced Technology Center went and visited Plotkinov after he got his first paper published in Secrecy, in the Secrecy journal is what I'm referring to. And they went to his laboratory, interviewed him, interviewed his coworkers, and looked at the apparatus and found out that he's not a physicist, he's not a material scientist, he's just a lab technician. So
Right.
he has no real strong theoretical founding in physics, not even.
Dude, I hate these people. I can't stand Eric W. Davis. He's a smart guy, but he's such a dick for no reason. The difference between Eric Davis and me, when I'm a dick, it's for good reason. It's for really good reason. When Eric Davis is a dick for no reason whatsoever. He's a lab technician. He doesn't have the right scientific background. Therefore, he can't possibly know or do anything. Well, Einstein was a patent clerk. Albert Einstein was a patent clerk. Does that mean that he didn't know anything either? I mean, what are these stupid arguments that he keeps making?
I mean, I never heard that he had a bachelor's degree in physics, but even a bachelor's degree in physics, it's just a survey over what you can learn at the undergraduate level about all the different physics topics. You're not at the advanced level like you get for a master's and a doctorate, where you have to focus on a particular specialty to propose a research topic that you're going to do an experiment or theory on, and then publish your thesis or dissertation for the PhD and defend it in order to earn your degree. So undergraduate physics is a survey of all of the different types of physics, so that you have a good rounded knowledge of what there is in physics, and of the mathematical and physics procedures you do to solve problems.
Right.
And but it doesn't prepare you to do real world problems. Well, actually it does. It's a good way of preparing you to do real world problems using those principles. But when you're getting to the advanced physics level of application,
Who cares about this?
You have to go to the master's and doctorate level. Actually, even the doctorate is more advanced than a master's.
This is the most, this is how you sidetrack a question, right? And this is the same shit that Jack Sarfati does. Jack Sarfati, literally the very first thing Jack Sarfati does when anyone says anything, you don't know what you're talking about. You didn't get a degree in this. You didn't go to wherever like I did, blah, blah, blah. Like, these are the worst arguments ever. And whenever I hear this trash, I immediately disregard what's saying. It's clear disinformation. It's just an attempt to poison the well so that you don't listen to somebody. Once again, the only thing that matters, doesn't matter where you went to school, doesn't matter what courses you took. None of that matters at all. All that matters is, does it work? That's it. Does it work? Yes or no? I don't care about anything else. I just want to know if it works. Simple as that.
And so, I just can't address these things because Plotkinov is not. He got that paper published in Secrecy, but as you know, George Hathaway in Mississauga, Canada, had Plotkinov involved with his replication experiment of Plotkinov's apparatus back, what was that, the early 2000s, I think it was. And Plotkinov gave George Hathaway his blessing and said, okay, this is great, do it. So George did it and built up statistical analysis on all the different experimental runs he did, and he basically got a null result. Nothing happened. There was no mass modification.
And I got to be honest, guys, he's talking about George Hathaway. We found George Hathaway. He's best buds with Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis, etc. And he does all these experiments. It's like all these experiments that we've been looking into, he like tries to recreate them. There's an interview. You guys can find this. It's on the APE, which is Charles Chase's thing that I talked about from 2022. George Hathaway talks in that. And he brings up Eugene Plotkinov. They talk for like 20 minutes about him and about this replication they tried to do. And my impression from listening to George Hathaway is the guy's the biggest fucking shill on the face of the earth. I wouldn't trust that guy to walk me across the street. These guys are definitely gatekeeping this technology. And they know how to do it in a way where they can get people to discredit it. And George Hathaway's response is like, he has all these same excuses about, well, we tried to recreate, but we didn't know exactly what he was doing. So we had to make some assumptions here and there. And that's when I'm immediately like, red flags are going off, right? And the way George Hathaway will say stuff like, well, we want it to work, and we were hoping it would work, but it just didn't work. Sorry. This is the same bullshit that I hear from Redditors when it comes to the MH370 videos. They go, I really want these videos to be real, but they just aren't, guys. So don't pay attention to them. Like, they're lying. They're lying through their teeth. They don't want the videos to be real. They want you to stop looking at them. Anybody that comes at you goes, I really wanted these to be real, but they're not. Everybody go away now. That's gatekeeping 101, chat. Gatekeeping 101. George Hathaway, don't trust him. Not even, I literally would not trust him with my kids or my dog. I would not even trust Eric Davis either. They're smart people. They're a little too smart.
Or slash inertia modification.
Right.
Nothing of a sort. No anti-gravity or repulsive beams or any of that nature. And Popkinov has just been an empty vessel. I mean, his glass is not half full; it's empty.
Got you. Thank you. The next question I wanted to ask was actually, this is something that even I have an interest in myself, which is, Dr. Davis, how far away do you foresee, if at all, the feasibility of?
This is actually another one of my questions. So 3 of Ashton Forbes' questions get asked to Dr. Eric W. Davis here. Get ready, guys. It's about to get spicy as hell.
Aneutronic fusion being useful for energy production and or propulsion.
Oh my God, they're working on it now. We've got a startup company that's been working, maybe two startup companies working on aneutronic fusion. That's the best way to go, but it's got the...
Okay. Right off the bat, I already know this dude knows way too much. He knows way too much. Right away, aneutronic fusion. He goes, oh, there's 2 companies already working on it. Yeah, we know. Tri-Alpha Energy and Helium Fusion. 100%, right? Boom. A boom, chat. And the way he responds, like, he just instantly responds. That was, I was going, oh boy. And it just keeps getting better. Buckle up.
Highest temperature, ion plasma temperature threshold to reach in order to fuse those blasted fusion fuel ions together. And generally, there's only proton boron 11, and boron 11 is an isotope of boron, which you have to refine from boron 10 and boron 9, I think, even. So then there's 2 helium atom fusion, 2 helium nuclei fusions chains. Then I think there's deuterium and maybe a helium, and there's several different branching ratios of different reactions where.
So now he's talking about boron 11. That's one of our aneutronic fusion fuels. Helium-3 is the other one he's talking about here. That's the other aneutronic fusion fuel that we heard David Kirkley, CEO of Helium Fusion, talking about. And he talked about the temperature. But we know, we were listening to David Kirkley several weeks ago, and he said that it turns out we don't even need to hit ignition. If we don't need to hit ignition, we don't need this temperature way up here. The temperature level that David Kirkley is saying they're achieving over Unity at is 10 times lower than ignition. 10 MeVs instead of 100.
One of them doesn't have any neutron production, but a lot of energy. So you really have a limited amount of aneutronic fusion, but they're there. And you just have to find a clever engineering way to overcome the Coulomb repulsion between the positively charged atomic nuclei of each fusion atom that you want, or each atom you want to fuse together in the fuel. And the only atoms we can fuse together are hydrogen and the heavier hydrogen isotopes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So aneutronic fusion, yeah, it's been studied and
don't spoil
underway since, oh my gosh, for decades. And they actually knew about aneutronic fusion as far back as the mid or late 30s when the first nuclear fusion experiment was demonstrated in a chemistry lab. I don't remember.
Holy shit. He's taking it all the way back to the A-bomb and before. He's going back to Farnsworth Fuser. We've known about aneutronic fusion since the 30s. Since the 30s, chat.
Now, whether that was a German lab and a British lab or American lab, I haven't read that paper. I got it, downloaded it when it got republished, and it was mind-blowing because this made the news a few months ago. It was over the summer that a physicist, I think in America, had discovered that paper. The fusioneers have forgotten all about the fact that there was a non-tokamak, non-laser inertial, non-alternative fusion reactor type technology that was used to do a simple demonstration of heavy water fusion in a lab. And you didn't confine it. You didn't need big giant magnetic fields and superconducting magnets of any kind. All you did was you just set up a catalyzing system that allowed the cross section to be that's the probability of reaction to be high enough to overcome the natural Coulomb or electrostatic repulsion of not highly, but positively charged atomic nuclei, which would be the proton for the hydrogen atom and single proton and a neutron. Well, the neutron has no charge, so it's still the proton in deuterium, and it's still a proton in tritium. And even though
tritium, I mean, why can't he pronounce basic elements? I'm a little sus here that he doesn't know how to pronounce tritium. Feels like a dude who's a PhD physicist that knows about this stuff should at least be able to pronounce the name of a basic element. But okay. Oh, let's just let him keep going. Actually, here we go.
Tritium, I think, even though it's got 2 neutrons, deuterium has 1 neutron. And you can do it with lithium. And I just don't remember off the top of my head how many neutrons and protons lithium has. But lithium is a nuclear fusion fuel. Oh, that's it. That's the other fusion fuel you can use for a neutronic reaction is lithium.
Thank you.
As a matter of fact, as a matter of fact, the isotope lithium-6 is important because it exists as a solid at standard pressure and temperature. Just get some lithium-6, sit it on your desk, play with it like a powder or whatnot. Right. And that happens to be one of the fuels in our thermonuclear weapons.
Wow.
Well, I wasn't sure before if there was another secret aneutronic fusion fuel, and now I am. Actually, if you guys go back several months ago, when I was reading Friedwart Winterberg's Principles of Thermonuclear Weapons Detonations textbook, he talks about lithium. In one of the first chapters, he's talking about lithium as your thermonuclear fuel. And I was like, this is weird because it's not referenced in a lot of the stuff. Like, it wasn't referenced in the 2005 JANF where I found the boron-11 and the helium-3. And I'm wondering, why is it not really talked about in the same vein that these other fusion fuels are talked about? Well, now we know why. Because it's classified for nuclear weapon, thermonuclear devices. Guys, I want to replay a clip right now. This clip is from Diego Garcia Whistleblower, a letter to Ashton Forbes.
As soon as we knew what plane was the last leg of their journey, we planned and delivered, so the plane was loaded up with lithium-ion batteries, built by us for this occasion. Lithium-ion batteries cannot be put out, has a predictable burn rate, and we made sure that the volume was just right for a long burn that would allow for a full-length show.
Wow. The letter to Ashton Forbes is legit, chat. The letter to Ashton Forbes is legit. We're looking at a thermonuclear weapon. We are looking at a neutronic thermonuclear weapon. The orbs are the fission trigger, plasma fission trigger for a fusion bomb. Holy shit. I mean, we speculated this, but to just hear it get laid out so simply. Last night, if you check out the Discord chat, after we kind of figured this out last night, because we were watching this, I was watching this, now you're starting to wonder, did the batteries get planted on the plane specifically for this purpose? And they would have had to been controlled. They would have had to put together that lithium specifically for this purpose. They would have had to securely deliver it, make sure it gets on the plane, make sure it gets put in with the other batteries where it's indistinguishable, right? For this whole operation to work out. You trigger the fire so that the plane turns around. Plane turns around, goes to the rendezvous point where the operation is scheduled, have the orb spin around the plane, boom, zap that shit. Thermonuclear weapon. Holy crap. Honestly, I want to look at this again. Because now, when I look at this now, like, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. We're looking at a nuke. The way that it just shadows out like this, right here, this is just, you can see the reflection of the tail of the plane sticking out of the wormhole right there. Let's call it a wormhole. So for Bob Greenier, who was in the chat, who said that he believes that it's an annihilation event, I think we're both right. I think it is that plane. There's no chance those people are alive. I'm going down to 0 chance those people are alive. And I'm not even sure the plane came out on the other side in one piece anymore. I do absolutely believe that they're manipulating space-time. No question. I think we found out that thermonuclear weapons have so much energy density, especially an aneutronic one, which is not releasing the energy in the form of heat, that it actually manipulates space-time. And then they started playing around with, can we turn this into a wormhole? Can we turn this into a wormhole? But does that mean it's necessarily coming out on the other side in one piece? Not necessarily. Rest in peace to the families, or to the passengers of MH370, and condolences to your loved ones, because it's just, I don't even know. There's so many emotions that go through my head when I think about this. Absolutely insane. Okay. Eric Davis, keep going, brother. Don't let me stop you, EWD.
If I can ask on behalf of myself and the audience, for those that are watching that are not as well versed in fusion, would it be possible to just give a basic breakdown between the difference of aneutronic fusion and, what we've considered to be, classical fusion, if you will, processes?
Okay. All right, one more thing I want to point out. So at the beginning of this, I said, why are the debunkers attacking me nonstop? Why are they not attacking Ian Carroll and Candace Owens, who are grifting off shit that's way easier to prove, right? It's easy to prove that what Ian Carroll, Candace Owens, what these guys are pushing is fake. Easy. And yet they're not attacking them at all. Even though they're making huge amounts of money, they're tricking people, fooling people. If you're a white knight, you should be blasting those people. But instead, they spend all their time trying to debunk me, trying to say that the videos are fake. We know why now. We know why now. Because that's a thermonuclear weapon. And that thermonuclear weapon is being covered up. 100%. They need people to not believe that's real. They need our adversaries to not believe that's real. They need what they did to MH370 not to be exposed, because good luck justifying the legality of using a thermonuclear weapon on a civilian airliner. Good luck with that. Let alone using a thermonuclear weapon that, by the way, we're not supposed to be detonating thermonuclear weapons at all. At all. So what we're looking at is something so illegal, so criminal, so morally repugnant that they cannot let that come out. This is the reason why you're seeing people attack me, and have you seen people attack me using whatever they can? And yes, they 100% planted the Gorgon Stare whammy footage. They planted those cloud images from that on the internet, 100%. Because they need to make sure that nobody ever exposed those videos and ever exposed what they did to that plane.
Yeah, you could call it neutronic fusion. Aneutronic fusion is the fusion of two atoms, the nuclei of two atoms, where neutrons are not produced.
Okay.
And you don't like neutrons because they're high energy. They're penetrating to a point, but the problem is when they hit the reactor wall or any reactor component that the plasma is exposed to, they will spallate or batter the material of the reactor wall or the reactor component to where it's now deteriorating. It's no longer a shiny new smooth surface of the reactor wall or component. It's now one that looks pockmarked at the atomic level layer, or maybe even after accumulated years of use, it'd be visibly pockmarked. So now you've got problems with your reactor wall and reactor components not being at their optimal characteristic or material property, and they'll break down, and that causes problems. Another thing is when you add a neutron to an atom's nucleus, you turn it into an isotope. So now all of a sudden, whatever your material is made out of inside the reactor that gets irradiated by neutrons, you turn them into isotopes of that. It'll be a metallic alloy, and unfortunately, some of these isotopes can be radioactive.
Got you.
There's a comment that I almost never read random comment from Paconin CT says in the Rumble chat. Lithium-6 deuteride is actually the storage medium for the hydrogen in a thermonuclear weapon. It is an anhydride and stores the hydrogen so it can undergo fusion. It is unlawful to produce commercially, but you can make it at home, as Bob Lazar did for his hydrogen-powered Corvette. You just need your own small-scale particle accelerator, which the Farnsworth fuser can be modified into. You guys ever wonder why the FBI was showing up to some 12-year-old who's making a Farnsworth fuser? Now we know. The FBI, the feds, are worried that somebody's going to make this lithium deuteride fusion fuel that can literally produce a thermonuclear weapon. Now we know how and why. There you go, chat. The more you know, chat, you only get this information on the Ashton 4 Orbs live streams. You will not find anything like this anywhere else on the internet. Hit the like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Let's keep going.
Got you.
They're not like uranium or plutonium, which have long half-lives that make them dangerous. It's they'll have short half-life, but you've ruined it. By changing the isotope, now you've ruined the material property of that metal, of that alloy, and it's no longer optimally strong enough to handle all that radiative heat coming from the fusion reaction. So you don't want neutrons. You don't like it. You want charged particles to be the result of the products of nuclear fusion, because aneutronic fusion would use those charged particles, which are usually alpha particles. That's basically the nucleus of a helium-4 atom. And the nucleus of a helium-4 atom contains 2 protons and 2 neutrons. That means it's positively charged twice, 2 times, 2 plus. And you could use that if you have a magnetic or electric field around for those alpha particles to go through, and that'll create an electrical current somewhere. So it's like you got a current of alpha particles. Look, according to Maxwell's equation, you'll have a current of electricity generated in whatever setup you have to generate the electricity in that environment.
That's why the orbs are a ball of energy, because the byproduct is charged alpha particles. Those charged alpha particles within a plasma will produce current, energy, electricity. That's what electricity is, current, right? So he's also saying here, he's speaking to directed energy conversion as well. Why is aneutronic fusion better than normal fusion, hot fusion? Because it doesn't release neutrons. That's aneutronic, no neutrons. Neutrons are the heat, the radioactivity. So if you get rid of that, what are you left with? Pure energy. Pure energy. Boom. Cool fusion, chat. That's what we're calling it. Cool fusion, aneutronic fusion. It's cool because it's dope as shit.
Got you.
Neutronic fusion is where you're going to generate a lot of neutrons. They're high energy. They're penetrating to a point. They're lethal to human tissue, but if you got a reactor containment wall, they'll stop there. But I've already told you what bad things those neutrons will do to the reactor system.
Thank you.
Oh, those neutrons, if you have any kind of magnets or superconducting magnets, especially superconducting magnets, those neutrons will damage the superconducting property of the magnet, and they'll just, by heating it up and depositing energy and neutrons to turn the material of the superconducting atoms into, or, the molecules that make the superconducting material, by turning them into isotopes. And those isotopes, when they're in combination with the other atoms in a molecular formulation, will stop being superconducting. Because only one type of isotope combination of different materials, like YBCOs, can be superconducting. But if it's isotope of Y, an isotope of B, an isotope of C or O, or a combination thereof, it's no longer going to have superconducting properties.
It messes with the composition of it, basically.
Yeah.
So even the orbs have to be aneutronic. Even the orbs have to be using aneutronic fusion. Why? Because otherwise the superconducting magnets inside are going to fail. Because the neutrons hit the superconducting magnets and they make them not be superconductive anymore. That's what he's saying right there. Aneutronic fusion is the secret to all this shit. It's the secret to all this. Finding out about aneutronic fusion, honestly, give me my goddamn Pulitzer Prize. Where are my Pulitzer Prizes? Guys, I'm going to have so many Pulitzer Prizes by the end of this. There's going to be, I have so many Pulitzer Prizes here, I'm going to have to start handing them out. I can't even carry all these Pulitzer Prizes at this point. Solving MH370, exposing aneutronic fusion to the world, exposing helium fusion, tri-alpha energy, exposing the fact that thermonuclear weapons are producing wormholes. I mean, this shit is crazy, man. How are they hiding all this? And I'm obviously being used. Otherwise, I would have killed me a long time ago. If I was the CIA, I would have killed Ashton Forbes. What are we doing here? What are we doing, CIA? Why am I alive right now? And we got Eric Davis is like basically speaking to me here. I don't know. Did you watch my content? This is so weird. It's just too on the nose. It's too on the nose. This whole interview is too on the nose.
Yeah.
With everything. Yep.
Okay.
That's why you don't like neutrons.
Got you.
In nuclear fusion.
Got you.
We don't like them in fission, but we can't get away from it. There's no such thing as aneutronic fission.
Got you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Well, the next question here comes from someone by the name of Vox. I'm not, my friend Vox, I'm not going to say the last name of your username because it's hard to pronounce, so forgive me. But Vox has a few questions, actually, which is, the first one is, what is the likelihood that instead of seeing a UFO near Groom Lake, as Bob Lazar and John Lear claimed, what is the likelihood they instead saw some type of directed energy proton or laser beam back in the 1980s rather than a UFO?
Zero. Because there were no technology of that nature back then, especially at Area 51. Protons were not used, and lasers were, but laser work was done in another part of the country at another laboratory. And
Gotcha.
Area 51 doesn't have a laboratory to begin with. It's not a laboratory. So the answer is 0. And Bob Lazar and John Lear, I wouldn't put any stock in anything they say because there are a couple of nutcases. And we already know that George Knapp investigated Bob Lazar, and as much as he's been promoting him over the years, George knows on a private basis that Bob Lazar is a problem. And I've investigated him with a former Area 51 program manager who's a member of the Roadrunners Retiree Association. He knew Bob Lazar.
Wait for it. I just can't trust this guy when it comes to like when he shits on everybody that like, but he doesn't explain why. Oh, he's a kook. Ignore him. Ignore that guy.
Our female supervisor, and he got the poop on Bob Lazar's employment, which did not take place in Area 51. It took place in an unclassified logistical support facility way outside of Area 51. He never had to fly take a Janet flight out there. He stayed in Vegas. He worked from Vegas. And then he ran an illegal prostitution operation at the same time.
Yeah, there's some. I know that people that have promoted Lazar don't like bringing that aspect of his life up, but I think it's fair to bring it
that's how you do. Yeah, that's how you do forensic profiling. We're not saying he's a criminal. It's just a profiling of somebody who's made outrageous.
Yeah, this is straight up CIA disinformation right here. Like literally, this is textbook CIA disinformation. He literally even says this is forensic profiling. Yeah, you're literally bringing up his brothel. It has nothing to do with science whatsoever. Well, he owned a brothel, and then he goes, "I'm not saying he did anything illegal." That's him legally protecting himself. That's him legally protecting himself from defamation right there. He knows exactly where the line is in terms of how you can discredit somebody without getting yourself sued into oblivion.
Claims, which everybody at Area 51 are looking at each other like, what the fuck? And so, and then you got George Knapp, who's promoting him a lot. He has said, so what the fuck? But he just kind of says, well, you got the story. But I think George is missing a beat somewhere, and I'm not sure why. He knows all the people I worked with who investigated Bob Lazar, and that includes Colonel John Alexander, or Dr. John Alexander, Colonel U.S. Army retired, who was responsible for Bob Bigelow hiring me at NIDS in July of '96. And so John Alexander was right out of Los Alamos at the time. He was the father of the non-lethal weapons laboratory at Los Alamos, and he did that after 32, maybe more than 32.
Like, bro, what are we supposed to believe here, man? Bob Lazar literally put Area 51 on the map. What's the story? He was living in Vegas, but he just made up this whole story that happened to be real about there really is this whole thing happening in Vegas at this place called Area 51. Literally, no one knew what Area 51 was before Bob Lazar came out. So, to me, you can't make an argument that he's just making this all up. That makes no sense at all. The only question is how significant was his role and what was he really doing and where was he really at? To me, that's the only thing that you can say. So when he tries to like completely throw the baby out with the bathwater, I'm extremely suspicious of him.
Years in the Army.
Wow. Yeah. So John Alexander spent quite a bit of time in the Army. That's for sure.
Yeah, and when you're the chief of staff to the commanding general of the Army Intelligence and Security Command, you can pull a lot of resources in the government to look into guys like Lazar. And
Got you.
He did when he looked into Phil Corso. So
that's right. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Got you.
That was king. What a lot of people don't realize is that the military records of uniformed service personnel were stored in some place in the United States.
We're going to skip some of this because I don't need to hear him shitting on people anymore.
I don't know how many of them didn't get recovered, but Corso had Alexander was able to find all of Corso's or something like that.
And if I'm not mistaken, there was another crash that same day, I think, or no?
Not that I'm familiar with.
Okay. So no, that's probably misunderstood.
Yeah. So anyway, So let's see. I guess that was my point or something.
Yeah, we're talking about Phil Corso and Walter.
Phil Corso. Yeah. So basically, what he wrote there is absolutely. I've verified it through my work since NIDS, and I didn't do it the way John Alexander did it. John Alexander kind of broke the rules. The way he did it is like the way he took the approach he took to talk to high-level people to get information on whether there was a crash retrieval of a crash on the Foster Ranch in Corona, New Mexico. He would knock on the door. Remember his. With the security clearances and need to know, he didn't have the security clearance and need to know for the crash retrieval program. So they said, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard of that before. Okay. Then when he retired and he's at Los Alamos with his Q clearance, he's getting the same responses. However, I went to the heart of the program and found the right people, and that's a long story I cannot get into. But I found the people. I found a U.S. president. I found an admiral. I found a general. I found program managers at companies who confirmed all of it, and they said, "Oh yeah, Phil Corso, of course, he's right." And Dave Grush did too.
Wow.
And so, but when you read The Day After Roswell by Corso and Burns,
yeah, I gotta be honest, I'm even more sus of this now, though, where like I'm super suspicious of this whole crash retrieval shit. I mean, this guy is snitching on everybody. He's bad mouthing and discrediting people that seem to be genuine in their intent. And then he's like, but yeah, I did all this stuff. And it turns out there are these crash retrievals and there's 4 species of aliens. It's like, are you just making all that shit up to cover all the rest of this stuff up? Because when we look at the MH370 videos, I'm definitely not looking at aliens. And we're definitely looking at the technology that the U.S. government definitely has. And so I don't know where the truth is with Eric W. Davis and where the lies are. It's hard to distinguish.
Find a lot of bullshit in there because Bill Burns looked at that one chapter and said, I can't write a book. I can't write a book based on.
One more thing I want to say is I looked up this whole Q clearance thing. It's 100% legit. When I was looking up those clearances of thermonuclear weapons, turns out there is this whole categorization of clearances in order to have access to various Sigma information related to the use of thermonuclear weapons. And that's how I found out that the president has unlimited access, assuming that the president can find the actual program. Then they can have unlimited access. But the way they protect it from them is like, if you just don't know what the program's called, then you can never find it anyway. So even if you have access, you can't see it.
He couldn't write Corso's autobiography because A, Corso's a horrible writer. B, he's boring. His life is kind of mundane and boring. There was really nothing spectacular. And B, only that one chapter on the UFO aspect of the Roswell crash was the only thing of interest. And so Burns had to embellish that chapter heavily to make it a readable, entertaining, attention-grabbing
to sell as a piece of media.
And it was a bestseller.
Right.
For God's sake, how long? I think it was on the New York Times bestseller list for more than a year, wasn't it?
I think so. I think
you were probably a little kid then. You're such a young guy.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, for sure.
I know it was on the New York Times bestseller list at least a year, which is unusual.
Right.
Unusual because a lot of new books when they hit the bestseller list were comparable to what we were developing in the way of the early microchip tech. Hell, microchips came out when Corso was working as a civilian for Lieutenant General Arthur Trudeau. And he was already he was still active duty lieutenant general, and he said the fiber optic the components pulled out of the Roswell craft resembled fiber optics and microchips.
I heard about this misinterpretation.
I mean, the components pulled out of the Roswell crash resemble fiber optics and microchips. There just happened to be 20 microchip engineers on board MH370. What a coincidence. Turns out we figured out that microchips are where it's all at. I was getting super excited. I can't believe how stupid I was. I was going to do a free energy magnetic motor, thinking that, we're going to make a free energy magnetic motor. It's going to be the cutting edge science. These people, they've had freaking microchips that can do this stuff probably for 50 years. And this makes me even more suspicious of the whole, it was aliens. I mean, there is a possibility, like it's plausible to think that another civilization crashed here or whatever, and we found the technology and we start reverse engineering it. But it's also possible that we've been advancing it in unacknowledged special access programs, and then an unacknowledged special access program crashes and somebody sees it. And now we go, look at this alien technology, but it's just secret black project technology. This is where I say it's not even worth it to try to figure it out. It literally just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it comes from. We've got free energy microchips and warp drives and wormhole technology. Just give it to us. I don't give a crap if it came from aliens or you've been hiding it for 50 years. It's ours no matter what. We're the taxpayer. We're the ones paying for it. All the DOE labs and aerospace corporations, all 100% funded by the government. It's our technology. Give it back to us, you sons of bitches.
because I know that a false rumor was started, I believe, which was that there was a rumor for years, and I'm sure maybe you've heard of it, which was that allegedly that Corso had claimed that what we now know as the transistor had come from Roswell, which was not. What he was saying was that he was handling pieces that resembled transistors, because if you look at the history, right, I believe
and he did say that they looked like or looked similar to transistors, but he also said the same about the because microchips were already out in the very early 50s. I think the precursor to the microchip emerged in either the Thomas J. Watson Center at IBM or one of the other ones.
I think it was, if I could be
Bell
wrong,
Labs, maybe.
I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong here, but I think there was a German scientist or team of scientists in the late 30s that had developed at least the concept for the first transistor. I could be wrong.
No, I'm talking about microchips.
Oh, microchips. Okay.
Yeah, microchips, and so those emerged during the Korean War.
Gotcha.
And so it's not out of the question for Coastal to have access to, and even fiber optics. I mean,
this speaks to what the other big aspect of MH370X and what we've discovered, guys, is we're trying to figure out who are the sons of bitches who are getting this technology leaked to them from the defense contractors. This is why, if and when I talk to Nick Fuentes, I'm gonna steer him and his fans directly at Commonwealth Fusion and Helion Fusion, because these motherfuckers are working with the defense contractors in the CIA, and they are being given this technology. It's dripping out through them. Potentially the same way transistors, microchips, and all this other stuff has been dripping out to the public. The same way AI, Sam Altman. I don't believe any of these AI companies are legit, at least not the first ones. I think this is what they've been doing with all this technology. And that's just criminal. It's called fraud. If you knew that something worked and you got inside information, you should go to prison for the rest of your life. You don't deserve any of the money you made. You shouldn't have been, you have unfair advantage. And this is another reason why they won't release the truth. We're never going to get disclosure. There's too much money tied up in billionaires who don't deserve their money, who will go to prison and go bankrupt and go broke if this stuff comes out. So I'm going to release the Groypers and everybody else on the Peter Thiels of the world, even the J.D. Vances of the world, who is 100% owned by Peter Thiel. Sorry if that hurts your feelings, but he is. We're going to release those people as our weapon against them to bring them down.
Plan is older than the 50s, and that's a fiber optic material, including, but the modern fiber optics have different composition than the first generation of fiber optics materials. So he's looking at this alien stuff. He said, "Oh, this looks like that. That looks like this."
Right.
But you see, if you change the words just a little bit, you make it sound like, oh, Corso said, oh,
it came from
transistor or microchip and fiber optic technology came from the aliens. We reverse engineered it and created those technologies in human culture.
Right.
All you have to do, all Bill Burns had to do is just twist those words just a little bit.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that answer. The next question I have here is, Dr. Davis, given your work on ball lightning in the past for the Air Force Research Laboratory,
right?
What are the odds that pilots, people who fly in, for example, various aircraft all over the world, what are the chances that in some cases, when people claim to see UAPs or UFOs, they may in fact be observing some type of laser-induced holographic display of some nature? Is that a feasible explanation for some UAP sightings?
Well, that's not ball lightning, but holographic projection. Who's doing the projecting? The UFO or somebody with technology that's fooling around?
Well, in the case
of human with the technology on the ground that's shooting it up in the air.
Right. In the case of, for example, if you have a pilot that is flying near, say, near an Iranian military base, could it be possible that, the Iranians, for instance, or the Turkish or whoever are testing some type of holographic projection tech that could be misconstrued for UAPs in some cases?
Yeah, there is no such technology because holograms or holographic images cannot be projected in daytime.
Got you. Okay.
Boom. Okay. Say goodnight to the whole bullshit holographic plasma nonsense that people were throwing out there. That was all disinfo. And we knew that was disinfo once we realized what plasma is. Plasma is a physical thing. It's not a hologram. It's not an illusion. It's not a projection. This goes, and you know what? I'm going to shit on Jeremy Reese because this guy's been attacking me still. After he begged me for a truce, he's still pushing this fake, like that I threatened him or something, which is all nonsense. He's such an idiot. He's like, oh, they have this plasma projection hologram technology. No, they don't. That's not real, bro. Learn science. Learn physics. Learn how plasma works. It's not an illusion. It's not a projection. Jesus, man.
The sun swamps it.
Right.
I'm sorry. The sunlight is like 1,000, almost 1,300. It's somewhere in the ballpark of 1,300 watts per square meter of of energy intensity, of visible light intensity. Well, that's going to swamp or wash out any laser beams that you have to use to create the hologram, because that's the only way to create a hologram is with laser beam. And the only technology that makes it where you can visually see it is when you record hologram on a transparent piece of specialized photographic plastic sheet, and the holograms are etched in like the silvering of an old-fashioned film photograph. So you have to shoot a laser beam. After you make the holographic patterns on the transparent sheet, you can see little blotches on it, and the little blotches are the hologram. But to make sense of what the blotches create in the way of a sensible 3D image that you can recognize in your brain, you got to shoot a reference laser beam at it. And usually the beams were limited to red and green back in those days. Well, hell, it was hard to produce a green laser beam back in those days. So I mean, what color were the holograms? If they're red, we could do it. If they're green, we can do it now. We could do it like since the early 2000s. And blue, well, blue was invented. Blue laser diodes were invented in the late 2000s, I think, close to 2010, probably late 2000s. And so that's the first time that you could get all three colors to produce a holographic image. But you have to shoot the sheet with a reference laser beam in order to expose the holographic image in order to see it. And that image is built geometrically within that sheet. To do it in the air is even more complicated, and it requires smoke and mirrors, literally.
Right.
So,
Literally.
no, that's the probability of that being misconstrued as a UAP is next to zero. Is probably as close to zero as you can get.
So even if we take the assumption that they might have the capability to do it, it would be extremely limited, and it would never be misconstrued as a UFO. Essentially, is what he's saying right there.
Just don't have that. You could do
glad that question was asked
on a wall, because now we have that type of technology. But you need a wall to see it.
Right.
Okay, shooting it up in the air and seeing a 3D image, they can't do it yet. What they're doing now is using UAVs, little drones. What they do is,
I thought he was going to say this, because instead we see these UAVs. That's how they're producing the image, because there has to be something there. There has to be a wall. There has to be something that you're shooting your image onto, right? That's the whole point of the hologram, is he's saying here. So what they're doing when it comes to China is they're making these drones that are making shapes in the sky, because there's got to be something there to be able to see. So it looks like a hologram when China uses these drones flying around.
they use AI to control a whole bunch of hundreds and hundreds of drones, and they put all kinds of lights on them, different colored lights, and the drones are programmed to emit one of the LED colors, all the different LED colors, maybe red, blue, and green, maybe yellow, white, and so forth. That's where all of our electronic and make the exotic space-time warps. Well, the forefront of they can't do it yet. To turn on certain LED colors, and then when you look up into the sky, they could shape this thing into a 3D image based on the positioning of the drones and the type of lights they use on them.
Got you. Thank you. Let me see one other question here, which is that this one here is from Michael Perrone, who says, let's say I am an aspiring engineer or physicist. Of the publicly available topics, what should I study to do well at the forefront of physics, looking 10 to 20 years into the future?
Yeah, Michael Perrone was going to join. I guess he's not, because he didn't jump on. Maybe I'll talk to him later, because I want to hear his opinion. But here's Michael Perrone's question. So Michael Perrone works with APEC. He's an engineer. I think he's a very intelligent guy. Let's see what he has to say.
Well, the forefront of physics covers a lot of areas. It depends on what you want. Do you want to look into applied physics, or do you want to look in theoretical physics? If you want applied physics to make something and invent something or solve a big technical problem, you would you could go into condensed matter theory, because that's where all of our electronic and exotic electronic technologies come from.
Condensed matter physics. Condensed matter physics, chat. I got to play one more clip. What is it? This. Hold on. Crap. Actually, I don't know where it is. I'm going to find it while I play this. Hold on. I wanted the Hal Puthoff Eric Davis or Eric Weinstein thing.
You might look at if you're interested in nuclear fusion or nuclear fission, you want to go into nuclear physics.
Gotcha.
And if you want to look at stuff like what I look into as a theorist who's looking into the applied physics aspect of traversable wormholes and warp drives and anti-gravity, then you need to go into general relativity theory and quantum field theory, because quantum field theory gives you the source of the exotic matter you need to make the exotic space-time warps or space-time curvature effects that it create a traversable wormhole and a warp drive, and or gravitation, anti-gravity effect. If you want to try to look for exotic particles, that's getting harder and harder to do, because we're having to build bigger and bigger accelerators with higher and higher energies. They get costlier and costlier and costlier. So it's harder now to look for exotic particles than it has ever been before, because we're just not seeing any anymore. We are seeing some, but they've already been known. They just haven't been discovered. Now they're being discovered, but there's nothing new and different that takes us up to a higher level. If you want to do quantum gravity.
Okay, I found it. Here we go. Boo, boo, boo. That was easy. Okay, here it is. Puthoff.
Ask yourself, what Pandora's box would a new physical insight potentially open? The role of aerospace companies as holders of potentially basic scientific knowledge not shared with the academic world. Is it possible? It seems very wrong to me.
Maybe wrong, but it's true.
It is true. You believe it's true.
Yeah, I know it's true.
You know that there's physics knowledge held by aerospace companies that is not
There
known.
certainly is materials knowledge.
Materials, well, okay, material
which
science. Which
involves topological physics or whatever. I mean.
Okay. But fundamental physics as opposed to
topological
matter or...
Right.
Topological.
Certainly aerospace corporations have knowledge in the UAP area that specifically are sequestered against FOIA.
Oh,
because of proprietary labels, which the whole thing was set up to be that way on purpose.
Right, but the idea that there would be fundamental physics knowledge that would be housed in an aerospace company and not shared with the physics community, there is no evidence of that.
No evidence for it, not that I know of.
And I wouldn't.
That doesn't mean it's not the case, but
that would be this crazy, egregious.
It would change our entire concept of who we are if somebody kept fundamental physics secret in the years since we became capable of exploding fusion devices. Right. I would grab a pitchfork and a tiki torch, and I would march on the National Science Foundation.
Weird reference to fusion devices there by Eric Weinstein as well. I'm starting to get a feeling Eric Weinstein knows a little more than he's saying as well. So topological physics is at least similar, if not equivalent, to condensed matter physics.
That get a Nobel Prize in quantum gravity, then you need to go into quantum field theory and general relativity, because the two of them come together in some way, or maybe it's not at all. You might have to go outside of that bounds, but you need the fundamentals of those two disciplines in order to tackle quantum gravity. And you most likely won't be using a conventional approach that everybody's been taking, because all the approaches that have been used now have ended in dead ends. And that would be quantum loop theory, quantum superstring theory, and D-brane theory.
Oh, we got to know what we know. Let's do the
what's
next
called
one.
the DD-254 form that gives him authorization to get clearance and need to know.
Wait.
The House Oversight Subcommittee subpoena, and the options are Admiral Wilson, Admiral Bobby Ray Inman, the Lockheed Martin CEO Glenn Gaffney. Those are the options. If you could.
The admirals are a waste of time. Glenn Gaffney, I'd kick his ass all the way to Washington D.C. to the House Oversight Committee hearing room in the Rayburn House office building. He would be the guy that under oath would have. Well, here's the thing. He's going to say this is at a level of classification that I can't testify to in an open hearing. I can do it in a classified setting, like in a SCIF in the O'Neill House office building. The problem is it'll be waived unacknowledged special access program. His clearances will have to be reactivated for him to testify at that level, and he'll have to be given the need to know, and all that is done through what's called the DD-254 form that gives him authorization to get clearance and need to know, and that'll be.
Oh boy!
Let's put it this way:
holy shit, chat! Glenn Gaffney Lockheed Martin, Glenn Gaffney. Hold up. Hold up, chat. Hold up. This Glenn Gaffney right here, this one that I just pulled up, who I didn't know about before just now. Glenn Gaffney joined the Noble Reach Foundation in 2023 when a merge was spun out from In-Q-Tel. You've got to be effing kidding me. In-Q-Tel? In-Q-Tel is literally the CIA's venture capital company. I'm not joking. In-Q-Tel is literally the CIA's venture capital company. Holy smokes. Well, sir, you are now on the list. Welcome to Ashton's investigative list, sir. And the other thing that he just mentioned is that he says this guy will never testify. If you try to force him to testify, he'll say, I can't say anything because it's classified beyond your comprehension. Classified beyond your comprehension. Chat, when I said I'm going after Lockheed Martin next, I was not kidding. We are going to start making lists of these people. We're going to start finding out everything that they're doing, every company they're working with, and start making little webs that connect them all together so that everybody can know. So that if, let's just say, people that are on the outside, they want to know who knows all this technology and all this stuff, they know who to go talk to. And you know what? If they don't like it, you know, I want my ScarJo clone to have red hair, I've decided. You know what? It's not good enough that I want a red-headed ScarJo clone. So make that happen. And if you make that happen, then maybe we don't need to make any lists. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, CIA. I know they're watching. Make the clone happen, Glenn Gaffney. Make Ashton ScarJo clone a redhead. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, let's get back to this. We got to finish.
Executive branch does not have to cooperate with the legislative branch on these matters. That's the problem. The legislative branch, I know they have an oversight role, but the issue is they're battling an executive branch issues and agencies for which they can only control the power of the purse. And just to get Gaffney in there, Gaffney will be able to waffle and avoid and divert because he is trained to do that, especially for wave unacknowledged special access programs.
Got you.
Yeah, what did he just say? He just told on himself, chat. This dude's snitching like crazy, chat. He's snitching like crazy. He's been trained to divert. Trained to divert. That's the first time I've heard this. You know who else has been trained to divert? Eric W. Davis. I can just tell listening to these dudes that they're being trained to divert. The reason why you guys watch me is because you know what an honest person who just says it like it is says, right? It doesn't leave anything behind. Listening to these dudes, you're like, nah, he's diverting like crazy. He's attacks people. He talks about their education when it's completely irrelevant to the question. This is like the type of training you would get to divert questions. I'm really glad I was a professional poker player at one point in time because it makes it a lot easier to see through the bullshit that these people tell.
Well, frickin' waffle. But he would be my first target. I wouldn't waste my time with admirals and generals. I'd go for him. But it's just that he will be bound. Okay, he's also bound by the presidential emergency action directives. So the presidential emergency action directives will probably clam him up, as well as the fact that the president of the United States also has presidential executive privilege that he could exert on Gaffney, since Gaffney was employed by the CIA. I think he's retired now, but when he was employed, that's in the executive branch. So the president can exert executive privilege, which means anything that Gaffney was doing is covered under executive privilege. But more importantly, it could be covered under the presidential emergency action directives, of which are never released to Congress under any circumstance. Never.
So do you, if I may...
That's what the presidential emergency active directives are. PEDs. Presidential emergency action directives. Remember, I said this at the beginning of the live stream. This is how they're hiding it. This is how they're hiding it. It goes to a level where there's no oversight. Congress has no oversight to this. Now we know how they're hiding. Those orbs in the MH370 videos, they're probably not any acknowledged program that's out there. They're an unacknowledged program that's covered under these presidential elective activism. This is the situation when they say, when you hear people in the military say, like, if anything were to ever happen, we would break out the super technology or whatever. This is what they're talking about. That's what they're saying. Why the hell were they stupid enough to use that on MH370? I have to know. The orbs in the MH370 videos are a weapon that we only break out when, like, Russia starts shooting nukes at us, right? They're like the thing that it's your ace in the hole. You never show it to people. But we were dumb enough to use it on MH370 and record it like idiots and allow it to get leaked to the public. You know what? I found people that are lower IQ, chat, than the low IQ anti-Semites and conspiratards. The CIA. The low IQ CIA that got so overconfident that they were like, we're going to go ahead and just break out the super weapons against a civilian airliner. You are idiots, bro. You're so dumb that I found out about it. A healthcare IT consultant off the street exposed your secret super weapon because you're so stupid that you went ahead and used it. Used it in a place you never should have been using it. There was no reason. Like, a lot of people say, why are they using this on the plane? Exactly. They shouldn't have been breaking this out on the plane. Yo, CIA, hold that L, CIA. Hold that L, stupid bitches. You better carry that thing. Carry it around with you. You got exposed by a healthcare IT consultant. How embarrassing is that? Low IQ CIA, chat. L's in the chat, everyone. Oh my God.
Do you think realistically, do you think that it would be a waste of time for Gaffney to be brought in?
Yeah, it would be, but he would be a target of a subpoena, in my opinion. If I had all the power in the world, I basically would do a Jesus to him. I put him on a cross, naked, and hammer big nails in his wrist and ankles, and then see how much he's willing to talk.
What? Bro, why did he just start talking about bondage right there? My dude's got some weird bondage clothing on, and the first thing he says is, I'm going to start hammering nails into Glenn Gaffney. It's like, dude, what is this? Like, what is this dominatrix fetish that Eric W. Davis has here? Pretty creepy, bro. That's a weird way to bring it up.
Got you. Okay.
Or maybe give him sodium pentothal shots and see how much he's really going to talk. So, yeah, he's a good doobie. He is well trained like I am.
Right.
He's been trained on.
He's telling on himself. He's telling on himself some more. He's well trained like I am. Bro, what do you mean you're well trained? Aren't you a physicist? I thought you're a physicist. Now you're being like, oh, I'm well trained. That's not the kind of thing you say when you're talking about science and physics knowledge. When you say you're well trained, you're talking about being CIA. Dude, I have this guy nailed. I have Eric W. Davis straight up nailed. I can see right through this guy. I can see right through him. You know what? This is why these guys are terrified of me, chat. Why everybody is so terrified of me. Comedians are terrified of me. Random Uber drivers making up fake conspiracies are terrified of me. I've got CIA spooks and engineers who are terrified of me as well. Some of the smartest people on the planet are terrified of me. And the reason why they're terrified of me is I see right through them. I see right through them. And they would not last in a 2-hour discussion with me. I will have them in the corner sucking their thumb, begging for mommy. Please, mommy. Please, mommy. Make me stop having to ask her questions from Ashton. Oh, my goodness, chat.
Violating security and not being an insider threat to the national security. And he just is going to follow the law and follow the rules. And he's just going to say, the president will be told by the national security advisor, who in this era would be the acting national security advisor, Marco Rubio, former U.S. senator from Florida.
Right.
So
boy. Oh boy. Acting National Security Advisor is who? Marco Rubio? Marco Rubio's the acting National Security Advisor? Who would be the person that knows? Oh my goodness, chat. Oh my goodness. I called it. I fucking called it, chat. I called it. Marco Rubio. Guys, remember what I told you guys? There's a letter out there, an email that I've seen and I've shared. I've deleted the email addresses that were on it, but I saw them. And Marco Rubio's name was right on there, chat. It was right on there next to Chuck Schumer. Both of them were on there. And the email is talking about using some ball lightning cold explosion on MH370. Whoopsie. Whoopsie, Marco Rubio. Little Marco. You've been exposed, little Marco. Put him on the list, chat. Put little Marco on the list. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. JD Vance, little Marco, Glenn Gaffney. Y'all are screwed. We know what y'all are hiding. We know what y'all are hiding. Oh, chat, please let me talk to Nick Fuentes, chat. I just want to talk to Nick Fuentes for just a little bit. Just a little bit. Because I'm going to load this dude's arsenal up. We're going to strap a rocket launcher onto Nick Fuentes' shoulder and just have him blast these motherfuckers into the sun. Oh my God, I'm excited. Oh boy, what an interview.
Oh, it'd be Rubio and Trump that'll have to decide if they're going to waive executive privilege and waive the PED. And maybe even Trump won't even have power to waive the PED for all I know. The PED being the Presidential Emergency Action Directives.
Right.
So I just don't know what mechanisms are there for exceptions to the PED, because so far we've never seen a PED published, revealed, leaked, acknowledged, or shared with Congress. It is classified, and it's never shared with Congress.
Well, so I was going to say that takes me to the next question, which is that one of the last ones here. Does the crash retrieval program under the auspices of the CIA have any coordination with the National Security Council and any PEDs? Actually, that was
honestly, I gotta be careful. Like, literally, maybe I shouldn't collab with Nick. Like, we're gonna end up getting Nick killed. I'm not even joking. Like, these people are gonna start like killing us if we start coming after them. Probably, right? And it's probably better that Nick doesn't know about this shit. It's probably better that Nick just thinks these people are just corrupt, but doesn't really realize the implications of how corrupt they are. Like, he's so close to figuring it out. Like, he knows JD Vance is owned by Peter Thiel, but he doesn't really get that, like, there is like serious shit going on behind the scenes. And this is why I tell people that are like, we're going to get the Israel lobbying out of America. I'm like, bro, you got no idea how deep it goes, man. They're never going to let that happen. They will definitely take you out before you get remotely close to that. But you know what? So I don't know. We'll see.
No, they don't, because that's a program.
Okay.
And the program is not run at the higher level. It's run at the program management, program office level.
Got you.
So the higher level, like the National Security Council or the National Security Advisor and the PED, that's way up the food chain from those guys down at the program office. Those guys are like puppets. You manipulate them to do whatever you want them to do, but they can't do the reverse. They can't coordinate. They don't coordinate anything. They get a request for information from above, and they look with their general counsel or their legal counsel, and they look to see, is that a legal question we can answer? If the answer is yes, they answer it. If the answer is no, they say, sorry, we can't answer that.
So you're referring to the National Security Council, or?
Well, it'd be really the National Security Advisor.
Got you. Okay.
Not the council. I make that mistake. That's the National Security Council might need to know for some reason, but it's really the National Security Advisor that coordinates the aspect of UAP issues between the CIA and the president.
Got you.
National Security Advisor. National Security Advisor is the one that coordinates between the CIA and the president. Okay, now we know. And Trump knows 100%. Trump knows about this shit. No question. That's why Trump is saying random stuff. Hey, it's not that I'm scared, chat. I already know I'm cooked. I'm going to get drone striked or fall down something. And by the way, nobody has permission to make up fake conspiracies about me. I don't even care. They're going to take me out. We all know it. We all know they're going to take me out. We all know who's going to have done it. Whatever. It's all good. We don't need to make up fake conspiracies. I don't want to give people a bunch of free grift money when I die. Just let them cover it up. It's fine. Whatever. Who cares? I just don't want to get somebody else killed. That's my moral quandary. I don't want to get someone else killed. Then I will feel bad. If I die, whatever, who cares, right? But if somebody else dies from it, then I'm going to feel a little bit guilty. So that's all that comes down to.
And one of the final ones here, we have a question from Michael Boyd. What, if any, peer-reviewed empirical evidence have you seen for anti-gravity or gravitational repulsion in the literature over the years?
Oh my gosh, the American Journal of Physics, my publications, which have been in the peer-reviewed, the Institute for Radio Engineers. So, and yeah, I already covered the American Journal of Physics. That covers it. There hasn't been a lot of work on that topic, other than, and I forgot that there's a Journal of Mathematical Physics A is another one. And that's because that is a journal in which they publish the peer-reviewed proceedings papers from a conference series that no longer exists. It was hosted out of a German university in Leipzig. And it was called, it's a weird bunch of acronyms, QEXT or something, or QEXC. And they held it every 2 years up until it terminated and just they don't do it anymore. But for every 2 years, for a good portion of a decade, they held the conference. I think it's quantum.
Actually, I changed my mind, Chad. So Eric Davis here is talking about he's the one that's figured out anti-gravity. Eric Davis is like, nobody figured out anti-gravity except for me. I figured it out. I figured it all out. Look at my papers. Okay. I mean, sure, whatever. I don't even care. You know what? Whoever just said that about Palestine, I changed my mind. If I die, I allow the anti-schizos, we'll call them, the anti-schizos are allowed to make up a fake conspiracy and blame it all on Palestine. They're allowed to, because I believe in equality. I believe in equality. The schizos wanted to blame everything on Israel. You are allowed to make up fake conspiracies and blame everything on Palestine, chat, so that the scales have been balanced. Balance the scales. I'm all about equality. There you go. You got it official.
Electrodynamics in external fields or something like that. Well, that hosted a lot of papers on the quantum vacuum energy. Sorry, the Casimir effect, quantum vacuum, the Casimir vacuum, the quantum vacuum energies, quantum ZPF effects, manifestations, predictions, theory, experimental proposals, and whatnot. You would find papers by some Italian guys, one guy named Bismonti and another one named Coloni, who were with the Italian Nuclear Research Agency, which is called in the Italian acronyms INFN, the Istituto Nuclear Fisica something. I don't remember what the last name is. So INFN is where Bismonti and Coloni had gotten funding to work at, and they generated a great deal of really outstanding papers on experimental concepts that they did extensive theoretically predictive work on in support of a variety of different Casimir effect experiments and measuring the vacuum effects. And their other papers were on the effect of Casimir vacuum energy density, or just vacuum energy density overall, as it applies to quantum field theory and curved space-time, where the production of gravitational field, which are a manifestation of curved space-time. So they looked at that. They looked at it and they said, hey, we got a lot of physicists out there wrong. Oh, yeah.
Right. We're going to go to the next question here. But I got to be honest, like, man, I'm becoming dangerous now. I'm actually becoming like a literal threat at this point, because we're now not just figuring out that they hid something. We're not just figuring out that they've got this hidden science and that the Casimir effect and 0-point energy is real. We're now figuring out exactly the mechanism by which they're producing significant amounts of negative energy, right? The parabolic cylindrical mirrors, not the Casimir effect, but a different application of the same concept. And we're also figuring out exactly how they're hiding this. And we're naming names now. Now we know the people that know, right? Marco Rubio knows about MH370. He knows about this weaponry. Tulsi Gabbard probably knows as well. Trump knows. Glenn Gaffney knows. Charles Chase knows. We are making lists now of people that no doubt know. So, it's getting spicy.
Yeah. Right. So now the issue is, can you do a materials science technology? Do we have a technology from materials sciences that allows you to build these things so that they're rigid, robust, and won't fall apart on you? Then that's the one side of the question. The only other side of that question, which also needs an answer to, is, can you measure forces down to 10 to the negative 14 newtons? Because that's the largest force you can create from a pile of roughly 1 billion Casimir cavities stacked on top of each other. And the answer to that question is resoundingly is now, as of the mid 2010s or early 2010s, is yes. Mid to late 2010s, we now have the capability to measure below the threshold of 10 to the negative 14 newtons. So we can measure very tiny forces. And if you can measure that, then we can start measuring if we a Casimir cavity-induced gravitational or anti-gravity effect, gravitationally repulsive / anti-gravity effect.
Yeah, I got to give props to Dave Rossi here, not just for one of the most incredible interviews I've ever heard in my whole life, but how is he keeping a straight face throughout this? How in the hell? You think Dave Rossi doesn't know about all this, chat? You think Dave Rossi doesn't know this is all real? How is he keeping a straight face during this interview? Like he's just playing dumb the whole time. Like he has like, yeah, wow, that's interesting. Wow. I can't keep calm on this. I'm losing my mind listening to this. Bravo, Dave. Bravo to you, sir.
From the negative vacuum energy contained in all those cavities. And everybody's in physics always saying, well, you got the positive energy density contained in those cavity walls. Well, that's true. And they're always bigger than the negative vacuum energy density in between those walls or cavity walls or plates. But if you make those walls thin enough, more transparent enough, more, very thin, so that maybe even at an atomic level, just one layer of atoms thin, then you might be mitigating so much of that positive mass that you might have an edge on the negative energy density.
One layer thin, he says. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of Paul Thibodeau's graphene free energy microchip, which he says we're going to make it one layer thin of graphene, and it becomes very flexible as well. There's definitely a connection to 0-point energy and Paul Thibodeau's free energy microchip, thermal bath microchip, whatever he calls it. So we are exposing a lot of different technologies here. And a lot of the technologies that we've been looking into are getting significant support based on what Eric W. Davis is saying here.
The little vacuum spaces between each of those plates, those billions of plates. Yeah, so it's a real tough balancing act in the technological implementation of that experiment that they proposed. They proposed an amplification scheme, which is amplified by the number of cavities. So you've got the raw force just between two plates in a cavity. Now what happens if they did the math to show that you can magnify that force, amplify it tremendously by having large amounts of cavities connected together.
Right. Okay.
It's still infeasible. Well, it was infeasible to measure 10 to the negative 14 newtons. Now it's feasible. Now it can be done. Just these guys never got money. They got awards. They won awards.
Dude, this dude literally just said that Sonny White's thing doesn't work. And now he's basically explaining how Sonny White's thing works. Sonny, I showed you that clip. He goes, it's cavity. Because imagine if we string these all together. Now you can amplify that effect, or now you can increase that effect and get this energy extraction. This actually, I mean, Eric W. Davis is now basically confirming that Sonny White's stuff does work, actually, here.
For the proposals, it was called Alpha 2. Sorry. I'm sorry, that's wrong. It was Aladdin 2. Aladdin 2.
Gotcha.
And so Aladdin 2 had wonderful number of proposals of different.
Have you ever come in contact with any type of NHI, alive, not alive? And have you also worked on any type of UAP craft in which you were analyzing materials directly? If you could.
Okay, here we go. Stupid questions about aliens, guys. Here we go. Dumb question about aliens. We were doing so good. We were doing so great. An hour and a half of physics, quantum energy extraction, wormholes, warp drives. Now somebody's got to jump in with the alien talk. How many species of aliens are there, Eric W. Davis?
Answer those.
Yeah, no to both questions. And the arts parts, we can't rule out that Hal and I were involved in reviewing the Oak Ridge National Labs materials analysis of arts parts on behalf of Aero and the Army Capabilities Combat Command in Detroit, Michigan, which had the CRADA contract with To the Stars.
Gotcha.
And so we were just outside contractors or scientific, subject matter experts who looked at the report and reduced it down from 90 pages. Now the public saw a 9-page summary. We got access to a controlled, unclassified information version of the 90-page report, and we were allowed to take copious notes. So I took copious notes.
So basically, I mean, he just said he's never been on a crash retrieval, he's never worked on a UFO, and he's never seen any aliens. Boom. Can we put that to bed now, or do we still got to keep asking Eric W. Davis about how many species of aliens there are? And by the way, that should have just been common sense, because the dude's a physicist, not a biologist. If you wanted to have somebody look at aliens, you don't bring in a physicist for that. You would bring in a biologist, somebody to actually, or a psychologist, but just anything other than a physicist, basically.
I reduced it down to a few pages. I don't remember how many pages my memo is, but it's just a very few pages where I bulleted all of the key features. So while we don't have evidence that there's an extraterrestrial explanation for Art's parts, we do have clear and convincing evidence, as Arrow does, that that was manufactured, not natural materials. It's just, and I'm not saying it's like, it wasn't natural bismuth, not natural magnesium. It was, but it's manufactured into the configuration that you see those materials as they are now. There's a big chunk, and then there's a bunch of flakes. And
he's talking about the magnesium, bismuth, zinc thing, which there's definitely some merit to that. Whereas, like, potentially they're using this as a shell to separate the outside from the inside. This is how, like, a UFO on the inside can be bigger than what it appears on the outside, because you're decoupling it from space-time. And then what he's implying here is that it must be alien technology because we wouldn't have had the material science to produce it, which I think that's a reasonable argument, but I don't believe it because this guy's lying through his teeth throughout this whole interview. And he's never seen any aliens. If you've never seen any aliens, what do you mean we couldn't have figured it out? You just told me we've had microchips since the 50s. We've had microchips since the 50s, but we can't figure out how to layer magnesium, bismuth, and zinc on top of each other. Seems a little ridiculous to me.
That's right. So we can't say that came from, and that was out in the New Mexico area, and I'm not sure if that was near the Corona, near Foster Ranch in Corona, but we cannot assign that to that particular crash retrieval event of July 4th, 1947. All we can say is, given the rise of the advance and need for the advancing of material science to support advancing military weapon needs during World War II, there was no reason, no requirement to bond bismuth and magnesium together at micron levels, where the layers are micron size layers, and there was no reason or requirement to do that. There's no purpose or point of doing so, and nobody knew how to do it until very recently. Had been suggested in the mid 2010s or so, and that you would do that to create a particular electromagnetic waveguide. And it turned out, when we looked at the material, it certainly was no electromagnetic waveguide for terahertz radiation, and it was certainly not a metamaterial. This material did not have the properties required to meet that application or those applications, and it was so heavily damaged too, as well. It had been sitting out on the desert floor. It had been oxidized and hydrated. So where you have elements of, instead of magnesium, just pure magnesium, you have hydroxylized and oxidized hydroxylized. So it's magnesium OH and magnesium O, which is magnesium O is magnesium oxide. Magnesium OH is magnesium oxyhydride. I think that's what it is. And that comes from picketly thick extraterrestrial origin. Other than, you can rule out the extraterrestrial origin only on the lead isotopes alone that we typically see on Earth. Quick break, because I just lost a hearing aid and I can't hear anything. So battery.
What is going on with my dude's camera here? Is this guy holding his cell phone when he's doing this for this interview? This guy literally helped the government develop teleportation technology, and he's working off his Nokia phone. He's doing his stream off his Nokia phone. Can we get my man a camera? What's the deal with this? Why do our Black Project engineers got the jankiest streaming setups ever? I'm a healthcare IT consultant. I got one of the best streaming setups, apparently, of all the people that are out here. What is this? The dichotomy is just breaking my mind right now.
Okay, and for the final question, this question here is not a question that Ross Coulthard has asked. However, it's been making the news lately, which is that, and I just wanted to see simply if you agree with this assessment. Ross Coulthard states that, and I quote, "There appears to be intervention from a very high level in government to stop UAP disclosure. President Trump made a promise during the election campaign that he would try to be more open about the disclosure of UAP imagery. That promise is not being fulfilled," end quote. Do you agree with Ross Coulthard on that assessment?
Yeah, he's right.
Okay.
Remember, President Trump is the highest level authority of the executive branch, not of the other two branches of government. It's only all in the executive branch. The frickin' judges don't have a say. The legislative branch doesn't have a say. The Congress on Capitol Hill. So it's not that it's somebody at the higher level. It's somebody at the highest level, which is the correct term to use. And I think that was in the question, actually. So somebody at a high level can go to President Trump and probably show him the PEDs, one or more of them, concerning this specific topic, and saying, sorry, the legality of this as it was derived or defined in the Eisenhower administration is you can't do this.
Gotcha.
You can't disclose.
Right.
And there are consequences if you do. Now, I think on the industry side, industry's got the legacy aerospace industry they've got security offices, and their security offices aren't going to compromise their government contract by harming American citizens, much less harming the president of the United States. But there are contract security officers they can hire as third-party security who are notorious for doing nasty things to American citizens who work in the legacy defense aerospace industry as well.
Well, chat, I'm cooked. I'm cooked, chat. You just heard it right there. He says, basically, someone's got to come down. Someone comes down and will tell the president, sorry, you can't disclose this. Here are the PEDs. You can't talk about this. This has definitely happened to President Trump. 100%. And people say, if Trump knew, he would say something. No, because he doesn't want to get killed either. And they're saying that it's not the government that's going to send it out. They've subcontracted the wet works, which is the people. They've subcontracted the wet works out to private military contractors who have their own security forces, like Sierra Nevada Corporation, Lockheed Martin. They hire the ex-JSOC people, the ex-Special Forces people. And if you're a legacy program, that's these unacknowledged programs. If you're one of these people and you start talking, I'm not saying this is the case, but I'm just going to say, rest in peace, Amy Estridge. Rest in peace.
Startups. I mean, legacy means they're the old companies that have merged again, and now you got the modern versions after all the mergers have eliminated the previous existing original aerospace companies in America. They work with, I think they work with the security officers, the third-party security. There's lawyers involved with those companies. There are sole source contract legalities involved with this topic. There are the methods of hiding the program from auditing and oversight. There's all of this that comes together, and the biggest number one issue is compromising a company's proprietary information. Because to take this out of the national security system so it cannot be FOIA'd or given to Congress, you got to put it into the proprietary information protection system of industry.
Right.
That's been judicially tested for centuries. And one thing the Supreme Court of the United States and all the appellate courts below it have always said, including judges, is you cannot violate proprietary information or intellectual property right protection of any capital enterprise of the United States, incorporated entities.
My guy, Eric Davis, is just out here spilling the tea. He's just spilling the tea everywhere. He's going, oh, they literally just gave the technology to the private defense contractors, and now it's proprietary information. Proprietary information. Now the contractors can defend their own proprietary information, whatever means are necessary. They're basically just above the law. Lockheed Martin is above the law. Lockheed Martin's defense contractors, they probably make these people sign agreements that say, we can take you out if you start talking. I want to see if somebody has and wants to leak one of these NDAs. You know what? I shouldn't even say this because people will fake the NDAs, but I imagine that they have clauses in there, like basically death clauses. They're like, we can take you out. And so this is how it doesn't come out. Because if you go work for Lockheed Martin, like Charles Chase, I probably put him at risk, man. I probably put Charles Chase at risk. And that message that Charles Chase sent me, there's probably some coded shit in there, chat. Like we should maybe look at that email again. I don't even know if I should have made that email public now, actually. Because he's probably never going to talk to me ever again. These people are terrified to talk to me. Because they can't even risk this coming out. Because if it even comes out indirectly through them, their lives are in danger. Their whole lives and livelihoods are in danger. Yeah, I have so much respect for Charles Chase, man. That guy's like my hero. Honestly, if he would let me just be his apprentice, I'd probably just give up all this shit. I'd be like, you know what? Deleting my YouTube, deleting my X profile. I'm just gonna go become Charles Chase's apprentice. Like he can be my Sith Lord, basically. I'll be the Sith apprentice, Anakin Skywalker. Just let me have a taste of the power. Give me a taste of the dark side, sir. I just want a little taste. Bring people back to life, whatever I got to do. Strike down the younglings. Do I have to strike down the younglings? I'll do it. I'll just fucking do it, chat.
Right.
You can't do it. It's illegal. illegal for the constitutional reason, then they'll cite the constitutional reason.
Right.
So you're going to get these voices that are going to be brought together under the direction of a PED that's going to tell the president, under no circumstance can you do this. So I think this is going on with President Trump not going forward to fulfill his campaign promise to declassify more of the military sensor platforms and military weapon and military other platforms, or I should say other military platforms that have clear and unambiguous high.
Chat. From my point of view, the Jedi are the evil ones. From my point of view, the ones disclosing it are the evil ones. Chat, never let me have this power, chat. No, real talk. Never let me have the orbs. If you do, whatever happens is on y'all. If you give Ashton Forbes the orb technology, do not cry about what happens later. I'm just saying, chat.
High caliber, high precision detections of UAPs is because it's gonna reveal too much about the existence of the platforms, number one, the sensing systems, number two, and it's gonna probably be a little too much for the American public to want to digest or be able to digest when they see what's on those videos. This isn't just a matter of a triangle going into the ocean and flying back out of the ocean again. It's more than that.
Wow.
Much more than that, yeah.
Okay, wow. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Davis, for coming on here. We've spent almost approaching 2 hours doing this, and I want to thank everyone in the audience who, over the past handful of days.
Okay, wow. Okay, that was an amazing interview, guys. Holy smokes. Again, huge shout out to Dave Rossi, my good buddy, Eric W. Davis. Man, if Dave Rossi can just swing these kind of interviews, can he get Hal Puthoff on? I want to have Hal Puthoff come. In fact, I want to play one more clip because I saw this video file and I haven't listened to it in a while. Let's just listen to this. I'll explain to you right now exactly how they've infiltrated these defense contractors, how they control and how they make sure that the technology flows from the alien longer beyond.
From now on, you own it. How do you control that, though? You'd have to have government agents embedded deeply in that, which I assume they do anyway. But you'd have to have intelligence agents, I hope they do, deeply embedded in these defense contractors, where they would make sure that they maintain some sort of intense level of secrecy.
That's exactly right. And when you think about, these days, well, suppose we have some kind of disclosure, what are these companies going to do? They've been hiding things, or various parts of the government have been hiding things.
Misappropriating funds, lying to Congress.
So you can see why it's such a big problem.
I'm just going to read these. Aneutronic fusion propulsion. Aneutronic fusion propulsion, by the way, is cold fusion. They just keep coming up with new names for it because they don't like to say cold fusion because it's got a bad stigma. Aneutronic fusion, the very first one on the list, is cold fusion propulsion. IEC fusion as a compact energy source, the one on the top right. IEC fusion as a compact energy source. Space-time metric engineering, nuclear propulsion, DIA, and the CIA. And then he got a contract from the DIA to get all those papers written. Some by him, some by Eric Davis, most by other people, other Black Project engineers. And they were on a classified server that nobody outside the classified server had access to. And they were the most popular papers out there, so popular that people demanded they not be removed from the classified server. Okay, guys, that's your moment of Zen. Have a great night, MH370X. I'll see you guys later. CIA, I love you too. Don't take it too personally. I just want the truth for MH370. All you had to do is admit we did to the plane, and none of this would have happened. Honestly, if this is anybody's fault, it's your fault. Later, everybody. Peace out.
Out in the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. Exotic chaotic matter. Negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeeze so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
Thin shell formalism plate so fine, spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Coulomb forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound. A shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread.
We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Exploring